So do you have like a
This is pretty good here. What is this?
this is double oak? I don't know. We should have brought the bottle in here,
Oh,
but something like that. I don't know. It's aged in sherry barrel, so it's kind of a little more well-rounded.
oh, okay. Well, all we really need, Sean, is we need another. We just need cigars. If I didn't do this in my house and had my own studio, we could really, it could be
Just
like a full Joe Rogan
kick back and relax. Exactly.
podcast. But yes, this is Conversation Monday. This is with one of the most interesting men in the world. He's a bit of a world traveler. He's done some hikes. He has some fine whiskey. He is a EMT. He worked part-time vegan. We won't hold that against him because it's only part-time. And he also is a meat eater for the most part. But it is, I don't, pride of Colorado, Sean Hope. Sean, welcome.
Thanks, buddy. Thanks for having me on, and thanks for accommodating the schedule, drinking a little whiskey with me, and
Yeah,
hanging out today.
yeah,
So,
absolutely. So I suppose now you're a Colorado. You're a Broncos fan, correct?
I am. I'm a hometown homer on
Home for
everything.
everything. Okay.
Everything, man.
Well, then,
And I'm not like a huge hockey guy either in the playoffs right now, and I'm like diehard, right? Like I don't watch a single Avs game during the season, and like playoffs roll around, I'm just like rabid.
yeah. Well, and
So,
they're in a tight one. I know. I think they're what? There is it game six tonight?
so game six was last night, and they apparently figured out that they won a Stanley Cup last year and showed up finally.
Oh,
So they dumped them 4-1. They're playing Seattle.
okay.
So it's kind of cool because Seattle's an expansion team. They've been around a couple of years, and to make the playoffs and get some home wins, and it's kind of fun to watch
Yeah,
from an expansion standpoint. But I'm an Avs guy. I want to see them win.
yeah, absolutely. And then Broncos fan and Nuggets, who they're playing the Suns right now, which should be a good series. I think that game's going on as
Yeah,
we're recording
yeah,
this.
it's going on right now.
But you're Broncos fan. How did you did you pay attention to the draft at all or?
So man, I saw the cleanup, like the full breakdown now that they've made their picks of what Seattle got for Russell Wilson. And it's so disgusting. Like as a Broncos fan, it's so horrific after watching him last year. So I mean, hopefully, I've been a Sean Payton man for a long time. It was Broncos and the Saints because I was always a Sean Payton guy. He always did things right. Drew Brees was a great guy. Grew, really well under him. So who knows? Maybe he'll juice a little bit more out of what's left of Russell Wilson. But I mean, we just sold the farm to
Yeah.
get Russell Wilson. It's so bad.
Well, and right away it seemed like it was the right thing to do because they've been in. Well, I don't even know if you want to call it quarterback purgatory for the Broncos, where it's been just abysmal quarterback play, and you can't blame their front office for trying to go for it. It's just, well, I think Russell was his own worst enemy. Their coach is not a head coach, and everything that could have went wrong for him, it did. And Sean Payton being having a grown up in the room who's going to be like, I'm going to coach you just as hard as an undrafted free agent. Maybe that'll kind of light a
Well,
spark. And maybe Russell has the self awareness, which the last year didn't really seem like he did, to where he's like, okay, well, I'm not as special as I think I am, and I gotta.
yeah, and I think like you look at like Pete Carroll, right? Like Pete Carroll and Sean Payton are kind of cut from the same cloth. Like they're hard nosed old school football guys. They don't accept a lot of bullshit from, their players. They're not gonna let a guy have his own office. They're not gonna do some of the stuff that a coach that had never been a head coach before allowed Russell Wilson to do. And focus on the football and do the right thing. So I think it's gonna be good. But I hope they can. The only success we've had in the last 10 years was retreading Peyton Manning and putting a good cast around him. And they've always had a good cast in Denver. The O line always sucks, but um, they've got the pieces. They just need some production out of Russell Wilson.
Yeah, for sure. And who knows? Hopefully they'll get it. They didn't get any first or second round picks this year. I think their first one was a receiver. I can't remember who it was, but yeah, they got some nice pieces. And did you grow up in the Denver area, or were you outside of it?
Yeah, so we grew up so we're in Littleton, so it's on the south side of Denver, straight down the I-25 corridor. So, I mean, like for us, when I was growing up to go to a Broncos game or a Rockies game, it was like 20, 25 minutes into the city. Like it was super easy to go in and go hang out. And obviously Denver's grown a ton. They got some growing pains. So it's now an hour into the city to go see a game. But yeah, I mean, we grew up going into the big city a lot.
Okay, and did you go to a lot of games? Go to a lot of Rocky games? You said you weren't a big hockey guy, but did you go to any of those
Dude,
games growing up?
I swear, I probably went to more. I'm not a huge hockey guy, but well, I haven't been a huge hockey guy until living here, kind of living, breathing hockey, UND. And, obviously I grew up about 10 minutes away from DU. They
Yep.
got a great hockey program, watching the Avs do it. But yeah, I probably went to more Avalanche games than Broncos or Rockies
Okay. Was
when I was
that
growing up.
just because it was
Yeah, just like,
more affordable, more better timing as far as schedule and
yeah, and I was lucky. I had pretty good access. I grew up. My pops was a lawyer, and he just happened to know a guy that had some good ends with the Avalanche, and we just happened to go to some Avalanche games. But yeah, I went to quite a few Broncos games, quite a few Broncos playoff games. The Rockies are awesome because it's still aside of the food and beer, but it's still an affordable ballpark to go see a
yeah,
game.
and it's a nice ballpark. It's
Yeah,
I know their team isn't always the best.
the product they put out is horrible,
No,
but it's fun to go sit in the sun at Mile High and
yeah.
go hang out and have a couple of
Well, and you've
beers. Yeah.
gotten to see your team at least win a playoff game. I haven't gotten to
Hmm.
see my team win a playoff game in general since 2002.
Ooh,
Uh,
rough.
or no, it was '03. They won a series. They made it to the ALCS in '02, and then they lost to the Yankees 3-1 in '03. And then yeah, they haven't won a playoff game since. But they Rockies. They got Chris Bryant, which I think he probably just looked at it as, you know what, I won a World Series. I got all the money in the bank. I might as well go live somewhere nice, and I can just hang out, and no one's gonna know who I am, or no one's gonna say anything.
Yeah, and
Just collect those checks.
yeah, gets a fat check. He gets to go keep playing ball. He doesn't like they paid him, right?
Yeah,
So if he doesn't put up production late in his career, he's already getting paid for it. So yeah, I think it's kind of the best of all worlds for him. But yeah, I mean, like that 2008, like that Rocktober push where they won what 20 some odd straight games, and it was cool. It was cool to be a Rockies fan back then, and I wish we had a little better ownership to kind of put the money in the cap and into the product that's going on the field.
yeah. Well, and I think that was like they were the nation's favorite team that year, where it was everybody was cheering for the Rockies because it had to be one of their first playoff appearances. Am I wrong? Because I
Yeah,
don't like growing up. I feel like they started in what, the '90s.
like 96, I think
Okay.
was maybe their first year.
Okay, and they just and yeah, and that was close to, because they always seemed like kind of just a doormat of the NL West,
Oh,
and then
so
they
bad.
they got hot that year, and then they sneak into a playout into the playing game, and then they score on a controversial call. Did Matt Holliday touch the plate?
Of course. You're never going to find a Rockies fan that's going to say no, right? Like,
Yeah,
yeah, no, I mean, it was, like I said, I mean, they won something like, 15 out of 20 to make that spot. And then, it was just a crazy push. I know all the pundits on the internet are going to give me the exact figures. So you just call me later and
yeah,
let me know exactly what you hear. But yeah, I mean, it was unique and fun baseball. And baseball's always fun in Colorado. It's just I wish we had a product that was more competitive.
yeah, yeah. I think
I
that's
mean,
it.
like you're competing against the freaking Dodgers every year, and they're always competitive.
Yeah,
In any of the other three teams in our league can, really compete, and then we're just a whipping boy 99% of the time. And it's not fun. It's fun to go enjoy the experience of Coors Field, but you want to see good
yeah,
baseball.
yeah, absolutely. And so then what you go to Colorado, you graduate where, and then how did you what brought you up to the Dakotas?
So I went to school at UMary, which
Okay,
is for those listening, Bismarck, North Dakota. It's a small. They made the transition to D2.
were
That
you
was
part
kind
of
of
that?
I was part of the transition to D2. So I came in my first year. We couldn't take a playoff spot or do anything like that, compete in any bowls, anything like that, because of the transition period and the way that works. We were very, very successful that year. And then the program kind of slid after that. They were a very successful NAI
Yep.
program, extremely successful NAI program. And they just don't have the power to compete against Duluth or some of these student bodies are 15,000 people
Yep.
with a school of whatever 4,000.
Yeah.
So they just don't have quite the draw. So yeah, so I spent 4 years in Bismarck. I left. I said I'd never come back to North Dakota.
Where'd
Went
you move to?
New
Did you?
Zealand.
Oh, okay. All
Yeah.
right. Well, so back up here,
Yeah.
because you talked about playing at UMary, and you talked about how they were, because I'm not sure if you come into UMary, you and they would have stayed in NAI, you probably wouldn't have been welcomed too well in Dickinson because Dickinson State and UMary were huge NAIA rivals. I remember going to those games with my dad when we were little, and those were always the funnest games to go to. The fans were into it. You know, it was the old Whitney Stadium where they would have it the bleachers on the track. They would have it all the way around because just so they could fit all the people there, and they were always classic games. I can remember it was one of the last years they played, and DSU was this game was on the road, and it was a big enough game where they would televise it, so I was able to watch it, and I remember it was like DSU was so close for so many years, and I it was the only time in my life where I ever saw DSU football beat UMary, and it was going to those games and you just watch, and it was a back and forth game at half, and I want to say UMary was winning. And then in the second half, DSU just turned it on. Something clicked, and they ended up pulling away from them. And like, I remember the announcers talking about how, yeah, and most of the UMary fans have kind of cleared out of here, but the DSU fans are really making their presence felt, and you could hear Blue Hawks or whatever the chant was back then. But those games and the basketball games, those were always so much fun to go to.
Yeah, that was the hard part, like making that D2 transition is like we go to Duluth or we go to wherever, and we're competing against schools that you have no history against, right? So it's not like these big college rivalries and or small college rivalries in this instance, and so there's no history there, and you're just trying to make your mark, and yeah, that's something I missed in my college career because I talked to guys all around town here, and yeah, that was like the jam is the Blue Hawks UMary rivalry was awesome,
Yep.
and I wish we would have had a little bit more of that.
And it's too bad that because like while the conference they're in now, UMary, it's the NSIC, and they only allow conference games because it also destroyed the Moorhead Concordia rivalry, which is a huge rivalry because the campuses were practically across the street from each other. And then if they play a non-conference game, being so close, that makes so much sense where DSU UMary could play. I don't foresee that would happen just because I don't think UMary would want to play at NAI school and take the chance of losing. But that's always part of it. But it would sell tickets.
Yeah,
You would get a bunch of alumni back for those games.
that's just it. And I think UMary is starting to do the right thing. So they're starting to they're building a stadium on campus. That was a big push. They used to play in the community bowl in town, and yeah, I mean, you get some community involvement, but the student body doesn't want to drive 25 minutes across town, drink a bunch of beers at the game, and the
Yeah.
tailgate, wander back. I mean, we saw the same thing. My family's big CSU alma mater, and their CSU stadium was out by Horsetooth Reservoir, and it's pretty outside the city. Nobody wants to go out. I mean, they did get good viewership, but they get way better viewership now that's on campus. So I think they're doing some things to kind of get everybody kind of back involved in UMary football, and hopefully, I know they got a new coach this year, Craig Bagnell, that was their coach I played with. He's a great guy.
He seemed like he had them on when coaches talk about always having the leaving the program in a better spot than they left it. He took over a horrible situation. I've heard not good things about the guy before him, and it was he got him to where they competed. It just didn't quite have that talent or the horses enough to get over that hump in one of the toughest D2 conferences.
Yeah, and that NSIC conference is massive. I mean, it's so hard. A ton of teams in it. And yeah, I mean, it's a huge credit to Craig that he went in and made it super competitive. They just need a little push over the top, and it's going to come from JUCO guys that can't quite make it, and a little bit of the recruiting outside of the Dakotas. But I mean, the backbone of those teams has always been North Dakota guys, the guys that can't quite make it DSU or can't quite go down to South Dakota or Montana to play. And I played with a ton of those guys.
Yeah, and I think it'll help too because they'll be getting a boost because BSC. Well, and actually they're going to a 4 year, so it probably won't really help if if BSC were to stay a JUCO, I think that would help a lot of school. I think it would help DSU. I think it would help UMary as well.
Yeah.
Just getting those guys that you said that don't quite have the grades or aren't quite good enough to make it up to the FCS or FBS level. And Bismarck's a nice town. And, I think too, the other part there in the conference they're in, they're a huge disadvantage where, you look at Duluth, Mankato, St. Cloud. Well, not anymore St.
Not
Cloud,
anymore
but
St. Cloud, yeah.
but like where, they're all within a stone's throw of the cities where they can go and get a bunch of kids too.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, you get that carryover, right? Um, yeah, I'm kind of excited. So after a while, after I was done, and I was kind of jaded. I didn't have I didn't have this super distinguished career playing football, right? Like I wasn't, the star guy. I played some plays and never really started, never really did any of that. And so I was kind of jaded for a while and stopped kind of watching the program. And I've gotten really back into UMary football and kind of paying attention to the program and like feeling that pride of, pushing for them and hoping that they find the pieces that make it fit.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And then so you graduate from UMary. You say you moved to New Zealand now.
I did.
Now we're back on topic here. So
Yeah.
what got you to move out to New Zealand? What was the draw about that?
So I was a winemaker in New Zealand. So I worked for a small vineyard in Bismarck. Every state grows grapes, right? So every state's different. You got to have XYZ percentage of grapes or percentage of juice, percentage that's grown in a state in your wine to be a state wine. And it was kind of a budding thing when I was in college to start trying to grow grapes in North Dakota. So I worked for a small vineyard, and I really enjoyed it. So
Was that around Bismarck
it
then?
was in Bismarck.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. It was Chateau Moravia. It was a Czech couple. They were awesome. And then so I was like, yeah, man, maybe I can make a run out of this, make a career out of this. So I went to New Zealand and worked harvest for Oyster Bay, which is a huge winery. I mean, we did 12.5 million liters my first year.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Were you the one that was on stepping on grapes with your feet, or were you a little bit above that?
I was a little bit above that.
Is that actually true that they do that?
Yeah, and it's super small wineries. So like the Oyster Bay would back up full semi trucks into their bins, and their bladder presses could hold something like 40 tons of grapes.
Oh,
I mean,
wow.
they're these massive. I mean, they're the size of multiple semi trucks. They're huge. I mean, they had, think your local Walmart front to back filled of tanks of wine. I mean, it was a massive operation. I'd never seen anything like it. So I did a harvest with them. Went and lived in Queenstown, which is like living in Vail, like a resorty, touristy, bounced in a bar, ton of fun, and then went back for another harvest, and then left New Zealand after that.
When do they harvest down there? Because the seasons are opposite of.
So it'd be the equivalent of our spring.
Okay.
It would be the equivalent of our spring.
Okay.
So like you graduate in the spring, right?
Yeah.
So I literally graduated, had like a couple of weeks to get my stuff together, flew down, started harvest, and then I spent the better part of 2 years there.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then did you get to do it? Because I've heard that it's a beautiful place to live, and I've seen pictures. And one of our coaches that I coach with, he was down there, and he got to do. Went down and hunted a red stag. Now, did you get to go do any hunting, or did you get to do any like hiking or anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, we went Mount Cook, bungee jumping, canyon swinging. I mean, it is the adventurer's paradise. I went great white diving.
What was that like?
Unreal.
Now were you in a cage?
Cage diving.
Okay.
Yeah, cage diving. It was awesome. I've been a scuba diver for a long time, and I really, really enjoyed that. It was something I always wanted to do, and it was pretty great. I never, I mean, it is one of the most. I always tell people always ask me, as I travel quite a bit, where should I go? Like, what are the best countries on earth? New Zealand is one of the best countries on earth. It's the best parts of Colorado, Oregon, Washington, like just those, beautiful picturesque mountains, great coastal line, forests running down to the sea. It is such a cool country.
Yeah, it sounds like it now.
Yeah.
I want to go. But so you're swimming with the sharks now. You're in a cage. Now, what was like the biggest shark you saw, or did you have any like real like, oh shit, this is a great white shark and it could eat me moment? or anything like that?
No, it wasn't like they were poking their head through the bars. I mean, they chummed the water a little bit, and I found out later, and my mother being who my mother is, did a little research on the company I went shark diving with. They had like the worst safety record of any operator in the world. The bars weren't duct taped together, but it was like the equivalent. Um,
How
you know,
deep of water were you in?
I mean, like, yeah, you're in deep water, so we're probably, you go out for 30, 45 minutes. They drop the cage, chum the water, you get in the cage, and you're not very far below the surface because the sharks are coming up to the chum, right? And so, I mean, you see big, I mean, I can't put a number on big great whites. I mean, that southern tip of New Zealand down there, when we went, has massive great whites. But yeah, it's not like they could give a shit less about you.
Okay.
They're hunting for whatever the blood they're smelling, the chum, whatever it is. And probably the closest they can kind of glide by 15, 20 feet out. Like
Gotcha.
they don't even, you see videos where they're all over the cage and at those guys. But yeah, we didn't have anything like that.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Because yeah, I mean that's like probably well, obviously everybody's gonna think about like that part of it, or like when they drop that cage in, is there ever like a chance like if it breaks, you're pretty much screwed. Like if that chain that's holding the cage now, like I'm guessing it's still pretty sturdy, but is there is there always that possibility that the cage would break off and you go all
Well,
the way down? Or
it's just like a hinge shut little swivel closed hatch. So it's not like if the cage let loose, like you couldn't get yourself back out, but then you're in chummed water with a bunch of great whites,
yeah.
which sounds like a really bad experience. So yeah.
Well, I don't know because I somehow like a bunch of sharks have popped up on like my like popular page on Instagram or like the reels, and like I stumbled across because I was like just watching them and just they're fascinating animals, and they were talking about how like oh they're not that bad, they're not scary, they're very actually very friendly animals. They just get a bad rap because of the movie Jaws.
No, they get a bad rap because they freaking kill people.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, ask any Australian. They get a bad rap because they eat dudes on Bondi Beach, right?
Yeah.
Like, yeah. I mean, sharks. They are fascinating. I've dove in Hawaii with hammerheads. Reef sharks in the British Virgin Islands, and yeah, like, I mean, smaller sharks don't bother me at all, but big sharks. I mean, they are purpose bred. They're one of the most efficient killers on Earth, right?
Yeah.
So, like, yeah, there's nothing friendly about a shark.
Yeah.
No,
Well, that and they've got what? How many layers of teeth?
oh,
Where
it's crazy.
it's yeah, like if they were to get like a close up of their mouth, there's like 8 layers of teeth. It's yeah, I don't. That just does not sound fun. There's a reason why people get their arms bitten off, and
Yeah.
like what like so like if you ever got into a close encounter with a shark, what do they tell you what you're supposed to do?
I mean, you hit them on the nose, and like that's the most sensitive part of their body. There's a ton of nerve endings in there for their amazing. Great whites can smell blood. What a drop of blood in a mile of
Yeah.
water or whatever. Um, yeah, I mean, it's kind of like getting attacked by a grizzly. I think. Like, I think you're just like you're lucky if they don't just eat you.
Yeah.
Like, you fight them as hard as you can. And you try to hit their vulnerable spots, but if they leave you alone, I think you're just lucky and they just weren't interested.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. And then so you go to New Zealand. Where'd you move back to? Did you move back to Colorado or did you move back to
Yeah, so I traveled pretty extensively through Southeast Asia, came back to the U.S.
where'd you go there?
Man, I did the full circuit. So I did Thailand, Cambodia, Laos, and Vietnam, and then did Hong Kong and Singapore kind of on either end. And one of my favorite parts of the world. It's unreal. It's so cool. And people are awesome. And, getting there is expensive, but traveling there is cheap. So food's cheap and transportation's cheap, hotels are cheap. And yeah, it was just a really eye-opening experience being I lived in the US, lived in New Zealand, spent some time in Australia. I mean, all like big time first world countries, right? And then you go to small villages in Cambodia, and it's like third world country, like 100%. Like these people are, selling noodles on the street for, a cent US equivalent. And it was really eye-opening. It was a really cool cultural experience.
What were the people like down there in those third world countries? Because are they Cambodia? Well, because they're famous for they have like the Cambodian killing fields. What were and was it by their own rebels or?
So it was so the Killing Fields Pol Pot was a dictator, and he basically didn't want anybody that existed that understood that he wasn't basically, I mean, as I understand it, God, right? So he killed every intellectual, every family of intellectual, anybody that didn't believe, any Christian, anything that didn't wasn't focused on him. He was trying to basically water down the generations to grow up, much like you see in North Korea, right?
Okay.
Like water it down, so like that die hard, this is God, we don't know anything else. Um, so yeah, I mean, the Killing Fields was one of the eeriest, most interesting places I've ever. I mean, you basically get a disclaimer when you walk in. It said, "Hey, just be respectful when you're walking. There's still bones coming to the surface." And there's this massive tower when you go in. It's probably 40 or 50 feet tall. And it's glass on four sides, and it's that very intricate, very Asian architecture, right? Big posts on all sides. And it's glass, and it's glass layers of all the bones they found that they can't identify. And so there'd be like a layer of, female skulls age 18 to 30. And it's, bigger than this room, right? So it's probably 20 by 20 on the side, and it's completely full of bones
Oh man,
that
that's
they found.
like the Holocaust Museum on steroids. I don't know if you've ever been to one of those, but I went to one in DC, and I remember them showing like they have one where it was just a similar, like, well, it was probably maybe about the size of like this closet here, where it was all kids' shoes.
Yeah.
It it's like just like unbelievable of like that someone would have like that amount of hate in their heart to want to do that
Well,
to
I mean, it's just amazing, right? The brutality of
yeah,
one human group towards another human group based on XYZ.
yeah,
Doesn't matter what it is. If it's, Hitler and the Jews, or, Pol Pot because he wanted to be God, or what's going on in North Korea, or yeah, I mean, it was a very eye opening. But Cambodia as a whole is one of my favorite countries on earth. So it used to be a French colony. And so it would be like this beautiful, 14th century temple, that's, 700, 800 years old, next to a French cafe. And so it was like this really unique blend of cultures. It's a really, really cool society. Southeast Asia, if anybody gets a chance to go, is if you like the cities and the culture and like that kind of thing, and not just like the natural beauty, it's pretty amazing.
yeah. What was the food like? What type of food did you eat there?
Yeah, I mean, you eat, you can get you're sitting and you go and you get like chicken or beef, right, at a stall with some noodles or whatever, and they have, cow tongue, cow brain, cow eye. But yeah, I mean, super fresh fruit, a ton of noodle dishes, a lot of fresh seafood, coastally, especially Thailand and Vietnam. Um, I've always been a big fan of Thai food and Vietnamese food.
Yep.
Um, but yeah, I mean, it's definitely, um, you can see why their cultures, if they had modern healthcare, right? Like if everybody had
Yeah.
modern healthcare, they would outlive all of us, because the food is so clean and so fresh and so immediately from XYZ source, because you don't always have access to a fridge. You don't always have access to, so it's got to come out of the ocean now, or out of the field now, and get used.
Okay.
So
Yeah,
yeah.
that sounds great. Like fresh, you can't, well, in North Dakota terms, like you can't beat fresh walleye or fresh
Hmm.
salmon that's just caught out of Lake Sakakawea or wherever. But yeah, I can about imagine. Then so you did it? How long of a tour was that?
So I did 3 months,
Okay.
all through Southeast Asia, and then came back. Yeah, I went back to Colorado,
Okay. And
back
then
to just south of Denver.
gotcha. And then what'd you do when you got back to
So
Colorado?
I sold liquor,
Okay.
sold wine and booze, and they didn't like me too much. I had like one of the biggest Costco's in the U.S. was in my territory, so they do all these contests, and they'd be like, "Oh, you sell, the most of XYZ wine, we're going to send you to Napa." So I just go to my Costco buyer and be like, "Bud, I want to go to Napa. Like, can you put 40 cases of this on your floor?" And he'd be like, "Yeah, dude. Like, we'll go through that in a week." Like, it was nothing. So I basically just gamed the system for, whatever, a year and a half while I worked for them selling booze, and went to like Napa, Sonoma, Washington State, like all these awesome trips. And then they were like, "Hey, your services are no longer needed."
That's a That seems like a boss's dream, selling as many cases as you can.
Yeah, but I mean, when you have 60 product lines and I'm really good at selling one of them, and it happens to be the one that has a trip coming up,
Yeah.
it's you gotta work the whole portfolio.
Well, you know what they say, cases are cases,
That's
Sean.
just hey, you would know.
I would.
You would
That's
know.
how I got. That's how I got a trip to Mexico. Was
That's right. I
selling them
forgot
on a
about this.
selling bubblers.
What was it? What was you didn't you just go on a trip recently?
Yeah, that was the one. It was
Oh, you
down
won
in
that one.
Mexico. Yep,
Okay, awesome.
yep. Yeah, it was just me, and then I met a handful of other ballers. We had like a meet and greet that first night, and then kind of just hung out with them and hung out at the
How
hotel
long did you
pool.
guys end up going for?
It was from Saturday to Wednesday. So I got in Saturday. I got to the resort at like 5:30, and then left Wednesday morning at Wednesday at like 11.
Okay,
So
that's awesome.
yeah, it was
Where'd you guys go?
Cancun.
Oh, love
So yep,
awesome.
Cancun on the Rio, and didn't leave the resort and had a nice oceanfront view.
Well, I saw some pictures, man. I was a little bit
hmm
jealous. That's okay.
Yeah, hung out on the beach, hung out at the bar pool, and just kind of relaxed for 4 days. It was great. It was
That's
the best type
awesome.
of vacation.
Yeah, so I mean, you understand, like, yeah, I mean, if they're gonna put an incentive out there for me to go get a trip to go do something, like, I'm gonna hammer that
Yeah.
product. I'm gonna
Well,
hammer it.
and I didn't even know like they were giving them out at all. And then all of a sudden, boss calls me. He's like, "Hey, you want to come back to the warehouse?" I was like, "Yeah." Depends. Am I in trouble? It sounds like usually you only tell me to come back if I'm in trouble or something. He's like, no, actually. And I was like, all right. So go in. He's like, yeah, you had the highest volume or sold the most cases, highest like percentage increase from last year to this year in bubbler sales, so they will gave it to you. I was like, oh hell yeah, I'm gonna go.
Yeah, I like it.
But yeah, so and then you were selling liquor, and then what'd you do after?
So yeah, so I kind of was doing the booze thing, and I kind of like stopped, and I was like, all right, like I can't, like, yeah, it's fun to go do all these promo events and win these trips. I can't sell booze forever, right? I'm like, hey, I'm kind of okay at selling stuff. So I kind of went to the generation older than me. So I got a sister that's 10 years older, and we obviously have a good network in Colorado. So I went to those guys that were like 10 years older than me that were successful. I was like, man, who's doing what? How do I get into it? So, we know bankers and lawyers and all this stuff. And I knew a guy that worked for Baker Hughes, obviously a huge oil company.
Yep.
And he was like, surprisingly, we have trouble retaining talent in North Dakota. We can send guys up, and the second winter hits, we lose guys. Um, so he was like, you've been there before. We know you can hack it. Are you willing to go back? And I said, yeah. So I got a job with Baker Hughes selling drill bits.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know why people would want to leave in the winter here. It's not like it's cold or something.
It's not, oh, this year was brutal. Buddy.
It was terrible. I was when I'd visit with people, I was saying like these were the worst roads that I've ever driven on. Like, and this is like I got my license when I was 14, so I've been driving for, weird to think that it's been 14 years now.
Yeah.
But like this is like the first time that I actually remember where like like you would be driving on the interstate, and like you'd feel the ice, and like you were driving like 40 miles an hour because of it. And
I mean, it's like we had 5 feet of snow on the front lawn. And it just
yeah,
never goes away. It's not like, growing up back home, Colorado, like you get snow and you get a foot of snow and it's gone in 2 days and it's 60 degrees. Like here, you get a foot of snow and it stays around for 8 months. Like this was the worst. I mean, it's been 12 years in North Dakota now, between college and now being here. This is the worst one I've ever seen,
yeah,
easily.
it was cold. We had a bunch of snow. It was like the worst combination. Usually it's like one where it's like it's really cold, we don't get much snow, or we get a bunch of snow and it's hangs out in that 20 to 30. You get your occasional days where it's 30 below with the wind. And but yeah, this year it was terrible, and it's like you're driving on the interstate and you see however many cars in the ditch or semis in
Yeah.
the ditch. It's just, man.
Yeah. So I came back to North Dakota, what, 2000, I want to say like maybe 14. It was right before we had a massive oil crash. So we went from like 180 rigs in North Dakota to like nothing, like single digits, like, you know.
And could you walk us through what a drill bit is?
So yeah, so in oil and gas, at least in the Bakken, we drill 25,000 foot deep wells, and they have 3 mile laterals. So you basically have a vertical section, and then it curves and they run laterally, and they want to be in a certain formation, right? So that they can, harvest out of that formation. So the oil is at XYZ feet deep. You want to stay in that formation for a 3 mile lateral, right? So the bit is there's different types of bits that drill each of those individual sections. And so it's attached to what's called a mud motor.
And then when you say sections, that's like a different depths in the ground.
Yeah, so
Okay.
it's a section. So you basically think of a vertical, curve, and then lateral. So think of a big L,
Yep.
right? So there's different. Those are basically your three sections. So that like they'll drill a vertical. They'll drill all the verticals on a well pad. So say you have 4 wells, they drill all 4 verticals. Then they switch equipment, drill all 4 curves, drill all 4 laterals. Okay. So we got different bits for each, and it's turned by mud. So they basically force mud down the drill pipe, spins a mud motor, spins that drill bit, and basically chips away the rock. So they got manufactured diamond cutters on them, and you put in different jets, and it's a whole very nuanced business, right? But it is the tip of the spear for oil and gas drilling.
Yeah. And so you were on. Were you actually on? Well, you were selling them, so you weren't actually on the 20 on the rig itself working it, like, because some of those guys, they're most of them are 24-hour rigs, and they're working different shifts. They're living in essentially man camps or trailers
Yeah.
on there, and then they wake up at weird hours. And
Yeah, I mean, those guys are 12 hours on, 12 hours off. And then, the schedules has changed, but the standard schedule when I was cutting my teeth was 2 on, 2 off. So you worked 12 hours a day, every day, 2 weeks, and then you went home for 2 weeks. And they were flying guys in and out. The guys were making huge money doing that, but making huge money doing that, making, let's call it 250 grand a year, and it's 40 below on a drilling rig, and you're standing there for 12 hours. I mean, it is all relative, right?
and you're away from your family, and 2 hour, and you don't get to see them, you don't get to talk to them a lot, because half the time you're either, well, you're working there doing their thing, and then when you get off, they're sleeping, or it's
Yeah, you're a day or night shift. Like you might get lucky and get a night shift and get off in the morning, get to call your wife before she goes to work,
yeah.
right? So no, I was pretty much standard. I'd go hit a bunch of rigs. You drive up to the rigs. We kind of when I was coming up, we were selling the Ferrari of drill bits. Like guys don't show up to a Ferrari dealership to buy a Honda, right?
Yeah.
Like unless they want to buy a Ferrari, they're not there. So we knew kind of where all our product was going. So you were kind of going to the rigs, dropping off product, dropping off your drill bits, knowing it was going to get a run. So
Okay. And
yeah,
then so you did that. How did you like that? Was that you're moving up here, and you said they had trouble maintaining guys. You were back. What was your schedule, 2 on, 2 off, or were you
no,
Monday through
I was pretty standard. I was Monday through Friday guy, and then you worked 1 week of on or one weekend of on call, right? So there was 4 of us. We had so many rigs in the state that you know most of the guys you keep up with your 40 rigs or whatever all of us ran, and then on your on call, like I mean, I think in the time I was doing, I maybe had to go out on a weekend twice, right? Like
Yeah.
oh, hey, we totally, destroyed this drill bit. We need another one. Like we're tripping out of the hole. We got 2 hours to get one here. If you want us to run you, if run a dirt. Sorry, everyone. Sorry, I'm very, I'm not Italian, but I'm like very
Yeah.
expressive.
I'm the same way.
Yeah, 100%. So, yeah, so I did that for a while. I basically came into the business, oil crash. I tried to hack into doing drill bits, and Baker was just like, "Hey, like, we need to cut some guys." And like, you just moved your entire life up here. So I moved over. I sold upstream chemical, which is on the production side. It's basically to keep the oil flowing,
Yeah.
keep the equipment in the ground. Um, I moved from there. I moved into drill pipe, which is the actual pipe that they drill with, or do what's called production string. So on the upstream side, on the production side, when they're pulling oil out of the ground, they have, tubing that goes in the hole that the oil comes up out of. So I sold that for a while. And then I've been doing selling drilling for 5 years now.
Okay. Yeah. And well, so I didn't know you were doing chemicals. That was both you and me then at
Yeah,
one
at
point.
one
So
point. Yeah, I'd kind of forgotten about that.
yeah,
Yeah.
my cup of coffee, the 10 months I had in the oil field before COVID hit, and But
I mean, yeah, chemical is cool. But it's kind of, you feel like you're selling magic, right? Like you can show guys the numbers, but if a piece of tubing wears downhole in 10 months and it wore downhole in 9 months last time, like they're like this.
yeah,
So it's you're just constant. It's constantly changing. You're constantly chasing this goal of trying to keep an equipment in ground longer, try to get better production out of the oil, try to separate the water better. I did that. I didn't love it
yeah,
because it's just you're just constantly chasing,
yeah,
and you don't have. It's not like you're a furniture maker and you make a chair and you show a guy a chair. The guy's like, "Hey, I want to buy a chair." Like it's you sell the chemical and you're like, "Hey, this is what this is supposed to do," and then you show them some numbers and it's kind of a,
yeah.
kind of a smoke show, obtuse kind of explanation, right?
Yeah, it's a very it was like learning a foreign language for me. It was, and even like 10 months in, like I still did not, there was still so much like that I could not understand or comprehend too, where I would just like
Yeah.
just over my head. And it's like I felt like I knew more, because like when I would like talk to like my parents or like friends or people that just in general, like telling them what to do, it's like when I first got it, it's like, well, what do you do? I drive a lot.
A lot.
You drive a lot. I collect water samples. And then like you'd go, like, I don't know if you guys had to do like rig visits, and then some of the company men aren't the friendliest people.
Dude, so
They're
bad.
it's it it was and then you're asking questions, and then they expect you to know it. It's like me trying to explain. It's like, I'm new. Can you explain this? And then some of them would get very frustrated. There's other ones that were like very nice, and they would like. There was one guy I remember that like he got out with me and he kind of walked me through and explained me like things like that, and he definitely appreciate it, because he's like could tell that I wanted to learn more about it and kind of understand, so I could actually like help in like when we'd have to do reports and different things like that.
Yeah.
But it was just a very very complex, a very like just it takes a long time and a lot of experience just to
Well, and you learn a lot about yourself when you're pulling water off a wellhead and it's 60 below outside, right? Like, and
oh
and your water won't separate, and it's mostly oil, and you like need like 5 ounces of water, right?
yeah,
Like, and you spend 2 hours and it's 60 below to get 5 ounces of water.
yeah,
Like it was not my favorite end of the business of everything I've done. I've got a lot of respect for the guys that do it, a lot of guys that understand it and spend a lot of time doing it. But God, it was brutal.
yeah.
It was brutal.
Oh, that's the oil field in general too, because like I remember those days too, where it was like you'd go and then you get like a 5 gallon thing of like a 5 gallon thing to fill it up with, and you're barely tapping the nozzle, because then if you twist it too hard, whoosh, a bunch of oil, everything starts flying everywhere, and then you got to do that, and then you're like holding it up and hope, just trying to keep it there, and the wind's pushing that way too.
Yeah.
And then you go and you put it on the back of your pickup box and you start pouring it, and it's like you look at the bottle, just straight oil. It's like, are you kidding
You're
me?
like, I need 2 ounces.
Yeah. Because I don't know if you guys
Yeah.
had those, probably those little bottles, and like
Oh yeah.
when we would get water too, it would be like, especially on those cold days, like I would do one wellhead, I would go pour it in, and then I'd go to my pickup, I'd write everything out, so it was like I had to warm up a little bit.
Yeah.
But
And you still always end up with a skim of oil, and
yep.
it was just such a pain. It was such a pain. I think most of the guys are looking now like there's field techs that just do that, and you
Hmm.
just have to account manage. And it was not. I was happy to move on. Baker was a good company for me, and they were really good to me. But I was kind of happy to move on to something else.
Yeah, and then so you did that, and what was your, you move up here, what was your kind of attitude towards the oil field? Because here, it's there's a lot of tremendous people that work in the oil field, and I've met, in my brief time there, I met a lot of good people, but like we talked about, there's a few of them company man. There is a few assholes in the business that give the rest of the oil field a terrible terrible rap. What was kind of your interactions with the
Yeah,
people?
I mean, I think it's like anything else, right? Like you got assholes in every single walk of life. And they usually happen to be the loudest or have the most influence, or sometimes they're the loudest and they have the most influence. And so they give a bad rap. But mostly genuinely, like some of the hardest working, hardiest human beings I've ever met work in oil and gas. And some of the nicest, like give the shirt off your back, like, hey man, like, I know you lost your job, like you need some cash, like whatever it is, like very genuine, have your back type people. I mean, you get like, yeah, there's rough and tumble roughnecks that want to go get in bar fights, and there's asshole company men, but like I think as a whole in the industry, everybody is um, pretty humble, pretty tough, very hardworking, want to just keep their head down and make a living for their family, and doing it in a hard environment so that they can create a future for their family that their kids don't have to work as hard as they do. Right?
Yeah.
Like that's a big thing with a lot of guys out here.
And I
So
think that's some of it too, because there were some company men too that you meet that they had their days where they were the nicest guy on the planet, and then they had their days where it was just they were just assholes. And I mean, not I don't want to single company men out, but that I'm just going off of what my
your experience,
experiences
yeah.
was too. But they want to do their job. They want to, like you said, provide for their family, and then they want to go home. And I think part of the reason why they were so grizzled and angry and pissy all the time is because they were probably 10 hours, 4 states away from their family, and they just wanted to provide. And you were the guy they saw, so they wanted to take their frustration out on you. It was
Yeah, I mean, it's not a 9 to 5. I mean, they're dealing with this is very dangerous industry.
Yep.
They have, let's call it 40 guys under their command, and they're worried about those dudes all the time. They're worried about making production. They're getting pressure from the home office. I mean, those guys, I have a ton of probably some of the most respect in the oil field for company men because
Yep.
it sounds like, hey, these guys make X, Y, Z a year, and you're like, God, like to sit in a shack, but like, I mean, the amount of pressure on those guys to produce, get the well drill quickly, safely, keep their guys intact, make sure their crews are rotating right, make sure they're getting returns, make sure they're in the right zone. I mean, like everything that is involved with what those guys do. And yeah, I mean, I've been in a company man shack on the wrong day, and it happens. It's like anything else. Like people get frustrated at work, right? Like you have a bad day at work. I mean, these guys are having a bad day at work, and it could kill somebody.
Yeah.
So like their bad day at work, like when they're like, "Hey, f you, I don't have time for you right now." It's like I have so much on my plate. I need to do everything in my power to make sure that everything goes right.
Yeah. Yep.
So yeah, no, trust me, I've been dressed down. There are drill sergeants that would blush
Yeah.
at the dressing downs I've had in company man shacks
Yeah.
for showing up on the wrong day.
How do you handle those type of situations? What's kind of your reaction, when and I'm sure when you walk in, you're able to kind of read the room that this guy, how do you kind of address those situations with them?
Yeah, I mean, it was something the best salesmen in oil and gas, right? They can walk in like there are tone deaf guys that walk in and they're like still BS with the guy and he's writing a report and it has to be done in 10 minutes and this guy's like, that's a good way to get your butt chewed. You walk in, you read the room. Like I can tell immediately walking in a company in a shack if he's in the mood to BS and like he just wants somebody to chat with and like, hey, how's your day? It's a great day on the rig, like, or if it's like, hey, you need to just turn around and go back out and come back next week. So that's the first part. But like, yeah, I mean, like I've had times where a guy's having a bad day and I hand him, a bill to get signed or something, and I say the wrong thing, and I just get lit up, like completely dressed down, like I'm the worst human being that's ever lived, and you just take it with a grain of salt. I mean, like you just yes sir, yes sir. You respect those guys, and if you show them respect, take your dressing down, whatever it is. Sometimes you're just the lightning rod for what those guys need to get out,
Yeah.
and
Your
yeah,
therapist.
you just suck it up. You just suck it up. Like you just, it's not personal. It's not has nothing to do with you. It's just the situation that
Yeah.
you're in.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
yeah,
At the end of the day, I guess you could say it's a good learning experience, and just try not to take that too personal, because it definitely is not. They're not mad at you. It's just they're mad at the world.
yeah. And I learned more about reading people and how to handle adverse situations, and how to read a room, and talk guys down and do all that. I learned more of that in the oil field than anywhere else.
Yeah. How did playing football or playing sports kind of help you navigate through that too? Did you feel a connection through that as well?
Yeah, I mean, I think that and we both still play sports. You and I both still
Yeah.
play softball, and I think that at least for me from a sales standpoint, I'm always competitive as shit. I always want to be better than the next guy. I think in those situations, I think those times when it's cliche, but the times get tough, right? Like you're down 14 points with 3 minutes left, and you got to find a way to drag those out. Pick up your teammates, pick up the people around you. You might f up on a play, coach chews your butt. I mean, all these things that you learn growing up translate really well into every walk of life, right? How you treat other people, how you interact with people on a bad day, how you interact with people on a good day, when you're winning and when you're losing. So yeah, I mean, I think there were a lot of life lessons learned through college football, through high school football, through high school baseball, all the things that I did that, I reach back on those all the time.
Yeah, absolutely. Which it makes sense because I don't know if I've ever seen you in a bad mood, Sean. You're always happy, you're always smiling, you're always just you're it's living in the moment. How have you been able to do that? When was the last time where you were like seething mad?
God, it's been a long time. It's been a while. I can't even pick a time like recently that I've been like seething mad. Like, yeah, I mean, I'm like everyone else. There's stuff that gets under my skin, but you're right. I really like to live in the moment and take each situation as it comes, right? Like, I try not to let things compound, and I'm pretty lucky, and the guys that I have around me, and my fiance, and I have a great outlet, and I tell people this all the time. They're like, how do you stay so even keeled? How do you do that? I'm like, I have an outlet all the time. Like if I need to get something off my chest, if something happens to me, if something happens between me and you, I can get out here and call 10 people. And I think that's something that guys, especially, that we don't do enough, right?
Yeah.
Like we're not willing to show emotion. We're not willing to get things off our chest. And so it compounds. And then all of a sudden, like you're just, miserable, or you're angry, or you're, drinking too much, or whatever it is. Um, yeah. I mean, I think that I keep a pretty level head, and I see a lot of things in perspective. That I know that if you and I have a bad interaction, I know it's not me, it's probably not you, it's probably that time.
Yeah.
Like so.
Yeah. What are some of those outlets that you do to kind of keep that even keel, that level head?
Yeah, and not to we're on a podcast, so not to reach my boy Joe Rogan too much, but I saw a really interesting thing that like it's something like exercise is 60% more effective than the leading antidepressant medication,
Oh,
right?
I believe that
100%,
1,000%.
100%.
Even like when I'm kind of in my phase where I'm not working out a whole lot right now, but like I can definitely tell, like I know that like when I'm exercising or I'm like active doing something, like I feel all the cliches of I have more energy, I'm in a better mood, all those things. That's definitely like exercise, just getting that heart pumping and taking it's and essentially an outlet to kind of just
Yeah,
let out that
you can
frustration.
work it out, right? Like that dopamine hit from, having a good workout, and all those things. So yeah, I mean, working out's a big one for me. Keeps you pretty even keeled. I might have a bad day, and it might be, hey, go for a run, or go pound weights, or whatever it is, and burn that off, and don't carry it home with me. But like I said, I mean, the network, the people that you surround yourself with. If you surround yourself with people that have a shit attitude, you're gonna have a shit attitude.
Yeah.
Like it's pretty easy, right? Like I'm surrounded by guys that smile all the time. I got a fiance that's like, hey, go do it. Like, right, like super supportive, amazing. Hey, if you need to vent, vent. If you want me to tell you what you want to hear, I'll tell you what you want to hear. Like, those kind of things. Yeah, I mean, it's just taking care of yourself, right? Both mentally and physically. And I'm an EMS. We had a tough day yesterday. We had to put somebody that we all knew pretty well to rest,
Yeah.
and he was overcome by his demons, right? And so like breaking that stigma of like, hey, let it out. Like it's okay to show emotion as a guy. And like, man, trust me, I grew up in like the Bill Romanowski era of football where
He-Man,
yeah,
the
where I
He-Man
was
era.
yeah, like you don't show emotion, you break dudes' bones, right? Like you never get caught smiling. And I've really changed that attitude to like, I'm very open about everything I've done in my life. I'm very open about everything I feel. I'm very open about where I'm at, and it helps. It's pretty amazing. So
Yeah, and well, I mean, mental health is such a at the forefront of today where, I think, and I don't I'm I'm not sure, but I feel like the amount of antidepressants that people are on, and I'm sure there's people that actually need it and benefit from it, but I also feel like, some of these things is it's where you have to almost man up and you have to just go out and do something where you to take your mind off those demons, and it's okay to go to therapy, go visit with somebody just so you have somebody, an outlet, like you said, an outlet to talk to. And it's sad, especially like we see like what you talked about your EMS, and we just had a police officer who just passed away. And it's one of those things that you just it's you looking back, you always wish that you would have been able to kind of reach out. And I think, like you said, it's always surrounding yourself with good people and always having trying to keep that outlet and being happy and smiling, because you never know that you know you being positive and having a good interaction with somebody, how they're feeling on the inside, where that could be, you know they you might have saved their life because you took an interest in their day.
yeah, I had a coach in college. He used to tell a story, and he said, "Guys, to this day, I don't know this guy. I don't think I think he has me confused." And he talked about he was a kid, probably like middle school, right? Um, leaving basketball practice one day, and well, he went back to his high school to speak, and this guy showed up and told him the story. So he was leaving practice one day, and this guy was like, "Man, I remember you came over. I was packing my stuff up, and you came over, and you're like, hey, so and so, I'm so glad you're on the team. I can't wait to see you tomorrow. I really enjoy playing with you." And so my coach looks at all the boys in the room. So when I was playing college ball, and he's like, "Guys, I think this guy has it wrong." Um, so this guy's talking to my coach, 30 years after the fact, and he said, "You didn't know, and you didn't notice you're a middle school kid, but my backpack was full that day because I had cleaned out my locker and I was going to go home and kill myself." He said that one interaction with you of being like, "Hey, man, I'm excited to hang out with you tomorrow. Like I'm so, joyful that you're on our team, right?" Um, stopped it. This kid had packed his backpack, cleaned out his locker because he didn't want his mom to have the indignity of cleaning out his locker after he killed himself. And so yeah, that was a huge influence on me of treating people properly. And you never know what somebody's going through, and like it's so easy to control your interaction with another person, even if that person's
Yeah.
having a bad day, even if that person's being an asshole. Like it's so easy to just not sink to that level, and just be a good person. um yeah, so I'm a big and we talk about it in EMS all the time about like the stigma and um you know letting things out, talking to people after bad incidents, that kind of thing, and not enough people do it, right?
Yep.
So
Yeah. But like, how much do you think of like this the mental health is like, where it's like, where do you like there are people that are just so pumped up on antidepressants where it gets to a point where it's like you need to do something else other than relying on medication.
yeah,
Where did you
I'm
know
a
where like that
yeah.
line has to be
Dude,
drawn?
I'm a huge like, I'm probably gonna end up on some watch list for this. I'm a huge anti-farmer person, right? Like I feel like we have everything we need. Like ice bath therapy, like that huge dopamine
Yeah.
hit. I mean, Nat and I started ice bathing, like that's unreal. Um, I'm a big fan of for guys, TRT, testosterone replacement, is a big thing right now because the hormone, all the alterations to our food, like we're guys are pretty high in estrogen. Our testosterone levels are like half of that of our grandparents at our age,
Yeah.
right? Um, so I guess I'm not anti-pharmacology in all aspects, but I'm anti-pharmacology in that there are things that really can help people from a diet, exercise, taking care of yourself standpoint, and there are band-aids that are given to us for problems that have been caused by XYZ, right?
Yes. Like you're essentially saying is that um antidepressants, and I don't even know any of the names of pills or whatever they're like the actual names, but you're basically saying is they should be a band-aid. They don't need to be, they shouldn't be the end all solution.
Yeah, they're and people use them as a crutch, right?
Yeah.
So like you need crutches until your leg heals, right? So there are a lot of people that do, and it's not, I won't just single out antidepressants. There are plenty of drugs that people do that are a band-aid or a crutch to get through something. So to go seek therapy, to rewire your mind through exercise, through cold bath therapy, through however anybody chooses to do it. Hallucinogens, like I don't know, there's all different ways that people can heal themselves, right? And we're too dependent on big pharma to be like, here's a pill to fix that, right?
Yeah.
Versus like attacking the root problem. Yeah,
Hmm.
like attacking the root depression or whatever it is, or the trauma from your childhood, or however you do it. You're like, oh, I can just pop this and I'm gonna be okay. And it doesn't really work like that.
Well, and I think COVID, now we're definitely going to get dinged here because we're bringing this up.
Yep.
But even like during like when COVID first hit, everybody they were telling you stay at home, don't leave your house, don't wear a mask, do this and that, stay 6 feet away, and you know everything that there was said has been proved the opposite. Like vitamin D, getting sunlight, being outside, being active, and taking care and investing in your health is the best thing to do for you. The exact opposite of what they were all preaching. It was what saved you. It wasn't a vaccine. It was proven that the better you took care of yourself. If you were active, you got the heart pumping, you were watching what you ate and getting a certain amount of sunlight, the better chances you were of surviving COVID.
Yeah, and I think that I take everything pretty skeptically, everything with a little bit of a grain of salt. But like, yeah, I mean, don't you feel better when you just like are active, right? Like, I have days too where I sit on the couch and like just hang out, right? But
Yeah.
like, I force myself to like just do that thing, like go take the dogs for a walk. Like, I feel better.
Yeah. Well, even like
And
like especially in the fall, like when there's football on from 10 o'clock till 1 o'clock in the morning, those are the days. Like I'll joke with my parents that you guys have no idea how exhausting it is to watch football for 14 hours in a day, because like I love doing it, but it's like I get more tired, and like by the time like night comes around where it's like, hey, come out, and it's like I'm good, I'm tired, I'm ready to go to bed, you know?
yeah, yeah, but I think you're right. I think we all got kind of screwed on COVID, and mental health took a back seat. Humans are extremely social creatures,
Yeah.
like shit like this, right? Like
Yes.
sitting down, BS with your friends. We went out with 40 of us, 30 of us last night after the funeral, and like just that release of spending time with those people. Like we all went through the super emotional thing yesterday, and that release made me feel so much better after going through this huge emotional thing. So like all of a sudden you stop that, right? Like you stop it. You and I can't. We can talk on the phone. We
Yeah.
can't be face to face. We can't give each other a hug. We can't, like, there really is something to human interaction, human touch, that camaraderie, like spending time with people. And I think it really, we took a huge setback in mental health for 2 years.
We took mental and physical
And
too.
physical.
It and yeah, it was like, even like for me, because I was probably the best shape I was in my, well, and I probably wasn't compared to what I was in high school, but I felt like it was the best I felt pre-COVID, where I was up at the gym. You and we were there every morning at 5 a.m. We were working out and before work, and like I was feeling good. And then COVID happened. They closed the gyms down. You're stuck in your house. It was, you go to work, you go home, and it's like you couldn't interact with people, or you weren't supposed to interact with people. It was just all of those. It was just, and it took off years, and it's gonna take 20 some years to even get back. And I mean, people like us, we were adults and we can work through that. But the people that suffered the most were the kids, where they were shut out of school, and the kids who had bad home lives. the studies are out that show that like child abuse is up more, domestic abuse is up more, like all of those things of how far everything set us back.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that um I mean you're right. The proof's in the pudding, right? Like all the numbers are out. Like all the numbers are coming out of all these horrible things that we did to ourselves by locking ourselves away. You're locking kids in bad situations, you're locking spouses in bad relationships, you're locking people outside of the social aspect of being at the office or going to the bar or whatever it is. Um
Or elder, and especially
or the
even like
elderly.
elderly
Oh
people, like
man.
where you're not able to go, you're not supposed to go see your grandparents. And I think especially for like, like our grandparents, where they weren't, they're, some of them, they who would go to the community center, they'd sit there, socialize, and have coffee for
Yeah.
3 hours after they worked out, or like not being able to see their grandkids, and shutting down nursing homes because that was, for the most part, I bet what was keeping them alive was that joy of walking, seeing their grandkids or parents come, or children come. And I that was what I thought of too, especially because it was about a year after my grandpa had passed, and when he was in the nursing home, that was like I couldn't imagine having to be in that. And I remember when I came back to Pepsi after I got laid off because of COVID, and like I'd have to go check vending machines at nursing homes, and it was the saddest thing because like there were times where I would see a guy, he was on the phone, and then the person in the nursing home was at the window, and that was all they could do is just wave and like see him. They couldn't have that face to face interaction. And
On that physical touch and
yeah,
like, man, I didn't hug my grandma for the last 3 years of her life,
yeah,
right? Like through COVID. Like, I mean, and that's something that like, I was a little kid coming up, like that was awesome. Like go see grandma, go get cookies, go get hugs, go hang out,
yeah.
right? Like, and I watch my buddies' kids do it now, and it's like, um, that was joy for her too, to like interact with her grandkids
That
and
was their dopamine.
have, yeah, exactly. And that was their happiness, and that was their release, and that was their human contact. And we took that from them.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And now, um, you said you're an EMT now. How did you get involved into that? How did you what got you interested into EMT?
So I got a good buddy that's a firefighter, and his wife was an EMT, and so that they would both go back and forth like, oh hey, you should be an EMT, or oh hey, you should be a firefighter. And I never really had a ton of interest in either. I was driving back from the field one day, and I was first on scene for a fatality accident. I was first on scene. I was first in the truck with the guy that had been killed. He was T-boned in the winter, and it took like an hour. We were in the middle of nowhere. It took like an hour for the first responders to get on scene. Obviously, we knew he had expired, so that probably played a little part in it. But I was like, man, my guys are around heavy equipment. We're in the oil field. Like, I need to know what to do if my guys hurt themselves, have a illness or an incident. So I reached out to my buddy's wife, and she's like, "Hey, they're doing an EMT class." I said, "All right, I'm gonna go do the EMT class." And it was our local ambulance service here, and I sat in that EMT class, and I fell in love. Like I wish I would have known 10 years ago that I loved it this much. It is a noble profession. Some of the best people I've ever met are involved in the profession, um, and it's huge adrenaline jumps at times, and it's really sad at times. And I think it keeps me not only more in tune with our community and like the sicknesses, drugs, things that are going on to kind of look out for. I think it really keeps me in tune with myself as far as like, hey, you were on a bad call, right? Like it was horrific. You need to figure out how to get rid of that. So yeah, I mean, it's been the most rewarding. I think I've held my license for 4 years now, and it's been the most rewarding 4 years.
Yeah,
Just doing that. And I do it part time. I do one night a week now. I used to do when I first started before I was with my fiance, and it was just me being single dude. I was doing like 120 hours a month on top of working full time. But I was just hammering shifts, and I loved it. And obviously, our call volume isn't like it's not like we're a big city,
yeah,
right? Like we
yeah.
do, way less calls than if I was living in LA. But yeah, I mean, we see a lot of the depression, we see a lot of the issues, we see a lot of the drugs. I mean, things that in your everyday life you don't think about. But yeah, I mean, it was yeah, kind of that one tipping point of being on that accident, being like, man, I need to be able to take care of everybody. to kind of lead me into 4 years down the road now.
Yeah, well, and it came into you were able to use that with my family too.
That's
It was
right.
we were about it was probably about a year or a year ago now, or
Yeah.
maybe it was long, maybe it was 2 years ago already. I don't know. Everything kind of has seemed to run
Yeah.
together. But when we were at Elsom and my grandma collapsed, and you were there to help and assist before we had the ambulance come in. Luckily, she didn't have to go in. Everything was okay. But it's the good Samaritan of helping people there, and I think it's and you're obviously CPR certified too, and I think even you talked about when you were out in the oil field and what kind of was that light bulb moment for you. Even something like that, it just shows like simplest thing of just going to a CPR class to get certified to do that, so you know how to do that, and because those seconds, especially if you're there, it could be the difference between someone breathing or someone who's gone.
Yeah, I mean, for the general population, right? Like, you got kids, like take a CPR class, like figure out how to stop your kid from choking. Like, you're an average Joe, take a CPR class, figure out how to stop somebody else from choking. Like, the number of people that we talk to or see, or journals that we read of like average Joe that just took a CPR class happen to be stopping at the convenience store and save somebody's life. Like,
Yep.
it's stewardship towards your fellow man. It's good for the people around you, right? Um, it's a selfless thing to be able to take care of the people around you.
Yeah, well, and it happened too with one of our sales reps for Pepsi, who was based out of Hettinger, and he was just got featured on the news that he was visiting with a guy at a gas station he was working in, and all of a sudden he just went limp, and the guy, his brain went off. He's like, "Oh, CPR," and those seconds ended up saving his life, where they were had somebody call the police. He was giving compressions, and he's luckily thankfully by the grace of God he's here with us
Yeah.
still. But do you have any interesting stories or stories you're able to share
I
on
mean,
the EMT?
yeah, I mean, I don't know how much I can share with it. I mean, yeah, I mean, there's always interesting stuff. I had a guy that was high, that was naked in a closet that
Oh
scared
boy.
the cops when he jumped out. I mean, yeah, I mean, there's always interesting stuff. I think, unfortunately, like, we have funny stuff like that, right? Like, the guy was fine, we took care of him. Um, but I think the hard part, and I see the toll it takes on the guys around me, and the guys that do it full time. I think the hard part is, like, there is not enough of the like levity incidents, and there's so many of the serious incidents like suicides and drug overdoses and whatever it is. But yeah, I mean, overall, and granted, I don't do it all the time, and I don't see everything that some of my guys see, but um, overall, it's as rewarding as you can imagine. Like,
Yeah.
it is the ultimate high of helping somebody and being there for somebody in their worst moment in their life
Yeah.
at certain,
Yeah.
some of the time.
So there's sometimes are there times where you go on a call where like somebody's just having a really bad day and they're doing whatever, where all they just need a hug or somebody to
Dude,
sit and chat with them? Is like, have you ever had any calls like that?
100%. We do those calls all the time. And so you hear them sometimes referred to in EMS as frequent flyers, and we get them, right. Like, we have hypochondriacs or whatever it is, but a lot of the times you really just boil it down. You start talking to a lot of these people. They're alone,
Yep.
and they're typically, at least a lot of the ones that I deal with, are elderly or older. They don't have any family here. They don't have any human connection. And sometimes, like, we've had people call us, and to get, oh, hey, my heart's racing. We get an ambulance dispatch, and we get there, and it's like, hey, can you check me out? And hey, can you open a can of soup for me? Or, like, I mean, it's amazing the humanity, right? Like,
Yep.
um, we talked about it earlier, like they want a connection
Yeah.
to another person. They want to feel, I don't want to say wanted. They want to feel like they mean something to somebody.
Yep.
Like, somebody looks at them and sees them. And so we get those people that call quite a bit that have mundane health issues because they don't have any other outlet,
Yeah.
right? Like, they want to be seen, right?
Hmm.
So yeah, I mean, we see quite a bit of that.
Yeah, for sure. And it's uh, just having a conversation with people. And you're definitely, because that's actually how we met. Is you just, I think I was at the gym one day and you just tapped me on the back, and like a few weeks later, my dad was talking to you, and then he was like, "Yeah, you guys know each other?" I'm thinking, I was like, "Yeah, well, we've met. I don't, or we've seen each other. I don't think we've actually met." And then all of a sudden, we start talking. But it's one of those things, and it's funny because that you brought that up, because it was on Tuesday, I think this week, where I was at after work. I went to Cashwise, and I'm in my Pepsi car, and this guy he had his window down, and I get out and I kind of just say hi, and he's like, "Oh, hey, how's it going? And what's the Pepsi deals looking like?" We talked for about a half hour about just nothing, and I don't and I he was just a nice guy and just a friendly guy. Like, it's one of those things, like, too. It's like, well, yeah, I kind of, part of it, me, was like, where it was, I want to get my stuff and go home. But then in the end, you have a good conversation. It's something you remember. And I don't know what this guy is. For all I know, I'll probably never see him again. But who knows? Maybe he was. And I don't want to try to sound like I'm better, but it's part of that. You talked about, like, your coach, having his kid having his backpack in, and I can remember when we had Miss North Dakota come and talk to us in elementary school, and about how there was a kid that, like, they walked by, they were in the same class, but they didn't know each other, and they kind of just she kind of just, like, looked away, and then the next day, she gets a call from her friend that said so and so committed suicide, and she sat there and thought, maybe if I would have said, "Hey, have a good weekend," or something, that could have made the difference. But it's just being kind and interacting with people, and to just, like, something that you're very good at and something that I'm trying to get better at is where, just living in the moment and enjoying the time for what it is, because you
Yeah.
only get one life.
Yeah, and I think it's such a lost art, right? Like
Yep.
we're all, I just watch it all the time, and I'm guilty of it. Like we're all staring at our
Yeah.
phones, right? Like I don't want to interact with people on the train at the airport. Like I just want to stare at my phone. Like I don't want, like it is such a lost art, and it's something that's so needed, and people don't realize they need it, right?
Yep.
Like that, you even bringing it up right now, like that brought you a little bit of joy,
Yeah.
and it probably got that guy a little bit of joy.
Yep.
Like just having that interaction, and like being seen by another person, right?
Yep.
Like being recognized by another person to like have a mundane conversation, like BS in the checkout at the grocery store instead of looking at your phone. Like it is a super lost art, and it's really detrimental to people and their mental health and like your social skills.
Yeah.
I get in situations sometimes and I'm like, man, like I have not been social enough lately.
Yeah.
Like I'll get there and I'll be like, can't chime in. Like my timing's off. Like those kind of things. And I'm a pretty social guy.
Yeah.
And I'm guilty of it, right? Like so, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Because even, like, now too, like, there's certain people that it's like you try to get stuff out of them and talk to them, and it's like there's sometimes the loaves of bread are more entertaining than talking to you, because you just don't want to talk.
Yeah.
Probably a mean thing to say, but there's sometimes that's kind of how I feel, is like when you talk to some people where it's like,
You're getting one word answers.
yeah,
And it's like, yeah, it's impossible to drag anything out of them. So
uh-huh. But okay. And then now you talked about working out a lot. How did your interest in exercise and working out, how did that come across? Is that something growing up that you always had, or did that something, like playing football and working it, and then um, getting out of it? Is that kind of, did you develop a love for that? Um, you always had, or was that something after, your football days were done and you needed something to,
yeah, I mean, we were always active as kids. Like we're on swim team and running around and, out till all hours of the night, running the neighborhood. And, but then it became a means to an end, right? Like, hey, you want to play college ball? Like you need to hit the weight room. Like you need to go to speed camp. You need to do these things. And then it basically became a tool to get what I wanted to do. And so I used it like that for a very long time. I mean, you're talking all through high school, all through college. It was a tool to get on the field, to get the scholarship, to do whatever it was. And so after I stopped playing, after I got out of college, I really stopped working out because I was like, it was like it had been a chore. Like it started as something
yeah,
fun, and like something fun is a way to a means to an end. And then it became part of, if you want to be any amount of successful at what you're doing right now, you need to do this. And so it was kind of like crammed down my throat 4 hours a day. So I stopped, and then I really found the love for it, like kind of in the last 6, 7, 8 years. Kind of found the love of like, hey, my body can do this. Like I can do these things. I can stay healthy. I love to cook. So, the
Yeah.
nutrition side is big for me. But like, yeah, it's always been a part of my life, but it's only recently that it's been like, I do it because I enjoy it. I don't do it because it's like I have to.
Yeah.
Like you're not going to play if you don't, and then creating lifelong health, like keeping me in good shape so that, eventually I can play with my kids. I can do these kind of things. Like, I don't want to be that guy that like I'm all beat and run down and like, don't want to go play with my kids because I'm tired and I'm not athletic.
Yeah,
Right. So,
absolutely.
yeah.
And then, so like for your workouts now, how did you come up with them? Were they workouts that you were doing in college, or were you just kind of did you develop your own workout plan or get it from the website? Because what is a typical workout week like for you, Sean?
Yeah. So I'm kind of back now on kind of full ticket bodybuilding. 4 sets of 10, 4 sets of 8, kind of like a 6 week, hypertrophy style program. And that's just kind of building season right now. Yeah, I mean, it's a combination of you do hypertrophy in college during the summer to put on the weight. You cut it out a little bit and, right before fall as you kind of get in the ball to kind of, you know, trim that little bit of extra so that you're as strong as you can be, but you still got the weight. Um, yeah, I mean, we did everything in college. I mean, we did bodybuilding workouts, we did CrossFit, we did all kind of. It was kind of the budding time of CrossFit, um, to try to find an edge, right? And so
Yeah.
I've been kind of through the gamut. So now I kind of use all aspects of it. So I'll do, if I wanted to get a cardio workout, I might go do a like hit style, CrossFit workout. You'll never catch me do burpees. I freaking hate burpees. But yeah, I mean, most of my stuff now is like full ticket bodybuilding scale stuff. We're trying to get more, put on some weight. Like I'm bulking pretty good. But now I'm trying to like I need the cardio back.
Yeah.
It's such a weird trade off.
Softball season, you got to be able to run those bases.
Tell I'm gonna make it to second. I'm gonna need oxygen at this point. Uh,
Courtesy runner.
yeah, just phone it in from the bench. Yeah, so we're trying to get in a little more cardio, and so a lot of that is functional cardio. So like, love it or hate it, and there's a lot of things I don't like about CrossFit, but there are a lot of things with like combo movements, those hit style workouts that build good joint mobility and build good strength while getting you some good cardio. So we've been doing a ton of that kind of stuff. And then, like I said, recovery is a big deal for me. We're ice bathing every night. We're doing like 4 minute ice baths for that little dopamine hit, work on the inflammation.
Where do you do those at? Do you just do it at
Dude,
your bathtub of your house,
I
or?
literally have a cattle trough, like a Runnings, like big black 100
Yeah.
gallon cattle trough in our backyard that we ice bath in.
Okay. And where do you get the ice from? Do you have
Yeah,
an ice maker, or
luckily we're kind of in that transition season where like so,
I
and
suppose you could just use the snow lately.
yeah, exactly. So we're kind of in that transition season where like that big body of water at night kind of drops that temperature. And as long as I like, I kind of know where it's at during the day, as long as I can keep it in like that 40 to 50 range, from those overnight lows with that body of water before it gets the sun and starts to heat up, then we're usually okay. But yeah, I mean, we'll just have to start dumping ice in. But I know a lot of guys, I think when summer hits, we'll probably build one out of a chest freezer. A
Oh,
lot of
okay.
guys do that, like a variable, you
Yep.
know, temperature chest freezer. A lot of guys do that. You don't have to do ice. You can put a filtration system in them. That's a pretty handy. But yeah, dude, I've always just used a big industrial ice maker and water. So
Okay. Well, yeah, my neighbor actually he's got a ice maker in his entryway. So which is nice for like if I'm going golfing or need to put some beers in or something like that. But like if I ever get the ice bath itch, I can just go find a bucket and fill it up and put it into my tub.
I'm
But
telling you, like Natalie and we'll walk out and we'll both like, God, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this. We hit that thing for 4 minutes. I get out. I feel like God. She gets in it, she gets out, and then we're like way more productive doing stuff in the evenings. Like we usually do it after work or whatever. Um, it sucks You'll see guys that are like, oh yeah, it gets better. Like, no, it sucks all the time, but like you do anything for 4 minutes, and the benefit afterwards of me doing it for 4 minutes is totally worth it.
I remember doing ice baths in high school after track workouts, and I could barely do it for like 2 minutes. And four, it doesn't seem like a long time, but I can imagine it's similar to doing something like a plank, where those 4 minutes seem like 4 hours.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, like, and I think most of the research now is starting to show like that kind of anything sub 60 degrees, right? Like kind of that 40 to 60-degree range. Anything in there, you get all the benefits. You get the anti-inflammation, you get the liver enzyme release, you get all these things. And so it's not like I'm jumping in, like I don't have to toss 60 pounds of ice in every time I go take an ice bath. I need to get that thing damn near freezing. Like if it's 55 degrees, I'll go get in. I still feel great,
Yeah.
So
Okay. And then like, so you do that after work. Now, does that help you sleep better? Or, cause I know like there's times too, like if I work out, like before I go to bed, I just know I'm not going to be going to sleep until like be able to fall asleep till like 1 or 2 in the morning. Have you noticed where it affects your sleep at all? Cause everybody's body is different, where there are people who only work out past like 8 p.m. or
yeah.
something. And then there's other people that, have to work out 5 a.m. or they're it doesn't work out or
Yeah.
whatever.
I
But
mean, a typical schedule for me. I mean, I'm a morning workout guy, you know that. Um, Anymore, and I'll show my age a little bit here. We'll hit that ice bath like before dinner.
okay,
And then before bed for like maybe half hour, 45 minutes, we're doing mobility work. So we might go do, a bunch of like, not necessarily static stretching, but like we use ROMWOD or pliability, I think it is now. Like a lot of dynamic
yeah,
mobility, stretching, hip flexors,
it's a
back,
Tom
whatever.
Brady's
Yeah,
TB12 method.
yeah, exactly. And so I find that like that little bit of blood flow, right? Like that stretching, that relaxation, that focused on my breathing, and then that like we'll lay down for 5 minutes at the end and do like a recovery period on our yoga mats. And then we'll go crawl in the bed and like read or whatever. Like that really like turns me off from the day. Like I'm not watching TV and then going crawling in bed. Like I am very focused for a 30-minute period on my body, on listening to my body responding, me going and just shutting it off. And so that's a pretty typical day for us. So
Okay,
I've found that since we've started doing that, that my sleep is better. The other thing for me is guys out there, get your testosterone levels checked. I found how much testosterone is tied to sleep. And if you're not sleeping good, and how that's a huge indicator of low testosterone. And that was like the big driving force for me getting my blood checked was like, I'm like, man, something's wrong. I'm not sleeping. And when I'm sleeping, I'm waking up and I'm exhausted and I'm not getting through the day. I got to take a nap. I got to do whatever. And so I went to a doc, and like testosterone levels are a huge deal when it comes to sleep
is
for
it
men.
okay?
Yeah.
Interesting. I
So
did not know that. I probably maybe I definitely need to start working out for other reasons, but or I shouldn't say other reasons, but a number of reasons. But that's definitely probably and more that I think about it too is like when I do work out, it feels like I do sleep a little bit better. And there's some other things too where like I try not to watch TV like an hour before I go to bed. And like, I've seen other things too where it's like eating, like if you're not supposed to eat like 3 hours before, don't drink anything 2 hours before you go to bed. And then once like an hour before you go to bed, uh, don't have any screen time
yep.
or blue light.
Yeah, I think that I found that through all my athletics and all the way through college, and like a lifetime of functional fitness, all this stuff, that every body is different. You said that earlier, and it's like you got to kind of find, like, there's so much research out there. If you want somebody to tell you that drinking 5 glasses of whiskey before bed is the way to health and happiness for the rest of your life, you can find something that'll tell you that on the internet, right?
Yeah.
So find some studies, find some research, find what works for your body, right?
Yeah.
And figure it out. Like my method won't work for everybody. My method won't work for you. Like it just happens to work really well for us. Um, I mean, and you just kind of dial it in over time. Like everybody wants a magic bullet,
Yeah.
and
It's
it's
that get rich quick,
yes,
that ever like they want the results. I just saw a meme of or a picture of it of um winning and the line around for winning, and then the what it takes to win, or it might not have been that exact thing. I think now that it says successful people doing what it takes to be successful, there's nobody in that line.
Yeah.
But you mentioned the 5 glasses of whiskey. Do you want to? I know we're both empty
Yeah,
here,
we're a little
so we
Winchester.
might we should let's stop it
Do a little
and then
pause.
let's fill the glasses up and we'll come back.
All right, perfect.
All right, we're back. Our whiskey glasses are full. We didn't have time in between the break to look up and see if there's actually a study that says the 5 glasses of whiskey a night is good for the health. But I know they say like a glass or two of wine is supposed to be good and lower your cholesterol levels. But um, I know as far as working out too. So my buddy Grant, who is part of the Three Guys Talking
Yeah.
Ball, we were one night in college. We were just kind of bored hanging out. And we somehow got on the topic of working out and exercise. We were talking about how the wonders a college weightlifting program does to the body, and you've experienced it firsthand. So we decided to go start looking up, see if we could find one. We actually stumbled across one. It was the Nebraska weightlifting program, and well, Nebraska the past few years they've not been using it. It looks like,
Yeah.
but we did it and like we followed it to a T. Like they had like conditioning, they had like speed workouts and everything, and it works. I tell you what, like that was like the biggest and like most built, like where I like people like would notice and like say, "Geez, you're huge." And it wasn't like where I was like, the freshman 15 or
Yeah.
something like that. It was like I was like noticeably like built, and um and then the other part of it, it was like built into like you talked about like the 3 phases, but we were able to finish our last week. It was the end of phase 2, and then summer happened, and or summer break hit, so I moved back to Dickinson, and Grant hung out in Fargo, so like we didn't get to finish it, but it would have been interesting to see if we actually finished all 3 phases of it. But I just remember the amount of food we ate.
Oh, dude.
Oh, it was like it was like you eat like a regular plate, and it's like I'm still hungry, and like we were probably eating like 4,000 calories a day, but also burning however many.
Well, that's the thing is, people are like, oh, I did some personal training at one point in my life, and hey, I can't gain weight. I worked with a lot of athletes. Can't gain weight. I'm like, you're not eating enough.
Yeah,
They're like, man, I'm eating everything inside. I'm like, you're still not eating enough. Like, if you go out and burn 4,000 calories and you're putting 4,000 calories in, you're at break even,
and
right?
we weren't doing
Yeah.
like the football, like going through a full 2 hour practice, but like even like now with coaching, like trying to get that through to kids, it's like this is about the one time in your life where you can eat whatever the hell you want as much as you want, and you're still gonna be okay.
Yeah.
Like I don't people don't realize the amount of food that you need to eat, especially like when you're burning that many calories and working and sweating as hard as you are.
Well, I got a buddy that does ultra marathons.
Yeah.
He'll go out in an ultra marathon and lose like 10 pounds. Most of that's water weight and stuff. But like when he's on a hard training program, like that dude's, I mean, he weighs 130 pounds soaking wet, right? But I mean, he's putting more calories down than I am on a daily basis. Like it's amazing how much you burn. But I think to your point on um, like the Nebraska program is that a lot of people, have issues with people are like, oh man, I started this program and I made all these great gains and I kind of plateaued. It's like consistency and like having a plan. Like
Yeah.
the number of people I see go to like people will always bug me at the gym because I'm always journaling. Like I write down freaking everything. I write down how I'm feeling. I might get done with 4 sets of something. I write, that was shit. Like your form was shit. Hey, squeeze your pecs more, whatever it is, to make notes for myself for the next week so I can be more effective. Um, and like the number of people I see that are just like, oh, it's leg day. Like, what am I doing today? Like, oh, I'm gonna do 3 sets of this, or hey, I might go hit leg press, or I might go do this, or it's consistency and it's measurability and being able to consistently improve upon what you did week to week.
Yeah.
So I think that's a big part of like programs like that. When somebody like gets a hold of that, you're like, hey, like look at all these gains I made like in this 2 phase program. It's like Well, yeah, I mean, like you were super consistent, right? Like you guys are in the gym every day doing the, the proper things, and that's, you know, I don't use them obviously because I've got a pretty good base knowledge and I used to do it, but like, go to a personal trainer and have them build your program, or find something that keeps you accountable and gets you consistent in something, and it's a night and day difference.
Yeah. And I know I tease this well, I think like and this is everything in life, but I think just balance and consistency. If you're able to do have that both of those things in your life, you're gonna be somewhat successful, and especially like in exercise and working out, like where my dad, who is ripped and much better shape than most of us and like everybody, and he's 62 years old, and he's in incredible shape, but like he eats the same thing for breakfast every morning. He has the same thing for lunch, and then supper he'll have whatever my mom makes, and whatever she makes is phenomenal because she's a great cook. But he's so consistent. And then like just a couple of years ago, he found some challenge on Instagram. I don't know if you've ever seen those pictures of him, but like where he was, he was. I mean, he took it to a whole other level where he was measuring his food. He had everything measured out and balanced, and I mean, he was shredded.
Shout out to Carrie.
Yes, shout out Carrie. Like it was Ed. He sends pictures to my sister, and my sister sends them to me. This is our 61-year-old father.
Dude, like if you and I are
Yeah,
of what your dad is at 61, I'll feel like the most successful person. Like your dad is genetically, like he's very gifted genetically, and he works his ass off.
yeah.
He works his ass off. But that's just it. I've never seen your dad miss a day.
No, he
Ever.
Doesn't.
I've never seen your dad miss a day.
It was the only time he does is if we're on vacation. Like they were just in Vegas over the weekend. They had their 40th wedding anniversary. And other than that, but yeah, the next day he was back in the gym.
I tell a story all the time of when I showed your dad. You must have been at your grandparents or something. You sent me a picture of your dad with it when he has afro.
Oh yeah.
And I showed it to him at the gym the next week, and he's like, "I'm gonna kill that kid." I tell that story all the time about showing your dad a picture of him with an afro when he was like in high school.
Yeah.
Like,
oh yeah.
He's like, "Where'd you get that?" And he's like, "Wait, I'm gonna kill that
kid." Yeah, he had an afro and rode bulls and Marines. He's been compared to Chris Kyle, but yeah, because you've seen the movie American Sniper. That's how it opens with him riding bulls, and I can't remember who it was, but he goes when they saw him, it was like, oh, Marine bull rider, Cary Gress. That's Cary Gress, just a younger version. So my dad didn't serve in any. They were at peacetime when he was in the Marines, but it's still funny to.
Well, I think that's probably part of it too. Is like that discipline, consistency that the Marine Corps gave your dad, and he can translate that to in his normal life. It's like guys that are out there in high school football programs. Anybody that runs across this podcast, whatever it is, take that consistency and just like you're gonna hate it. Like I hated it. Like I wanted to be a effing teenager. I wanted to sleep in. I wanted to do all that BS. I wanted to be a college kid. I wanted to go party till whatever the heck o'clock.
And you still probably did it a few times. The just difference was you had to go to practice the next day.
Exactly. I had to suck it up and suffer through practice the next day. But like take that consistency, and like people are always like, "Oh, hey, I want XYZ," right? Like having a goal only gets you so far.
Yeah.
Okay. So like, hey, I want to look like XYZ. A goal only gets you far. Discipline, consistency gets you way farther than like, having some sort of goal, right? Like if you can get yourself consistent working towards a goal, like you're going to achieve it so much better than just like having that goal out there and like, oh, like I don't feel like it today, or like, oh, like I'll go to the gym this afternoon. Like instead of just getting up, doing it, putting yourself on a schedule and just
my problem right here.
Oh, so bad.
Exactly too. And it's like, oh yeah, I'm gonna go, and then you get done with the work. I'm not going, and it's like you just feel just like a giant turd. And that's exactly how I feel most days. It's like, and then you're mad at yourself because you don't. You're just like, I should have went. I was awake. I was up. I had to go to the bathroom. Why didn't I just go put on my workout clothes and
Yeah,
go do it?
I think the morning workout is so underrated.
Oh, I love it. That's
It's
the
so
best time to
underrated.
go. It's
Yes.
quiet. It sets the tone for the day. I feel like where you can say you could have a terrible day at work or whatever you're doing, but you can at least go and say I accomplished something. I made my bed and I went and worked out.
What's the book like? Like Make Your Bed, Son,
Yeah,
right? Like if you get up and you do that one thing, like you accomplish that one simple thing, right? It's basically right. I've never read it, but I kind of understand as the
yeah.
basis of this book. Like you get up and you accomplish that one thing. Like you get up and you go have a workout. You're right. Doesn't matter what else happens that day. You accomplish that thing, and then if the day's shit and you get home and you don't feel like effing doing anything, guess what? It's already been done.
Yep.
You know?
Exactly. Yeah, for sure. And we talked a little bit about diet. We'll go diet and the health and the eating part of it. You had a couple of stages of your life, Sean, where you were, and I can see that look here where you're like, oh,
Here we go.
you're really bringing this
Here we
up.
go. Yep.
You were a hippie, you had a hippie phase, and it didn't sync up too, because there's some college pictures of you with long hair, but you didn't do this when you had long hair. Now
I don't have any
you
hair.
lost it all.
Yeah,
So it's the exact opposite here. But you had a few phases of veganism now.
I did. And actually, so my first big long phase of veganism, I have a buddy that's a vegan bodybuilder. Um, and I kind of got kind of interested in it. And I was like, well, I'm going to try it out. Right. So I tried it, and it was when I was cycling a lot, I was running a lot, and I'm a good sized guy. Like my joints take a huge beating when I run, um, and my inflammation disappeared. I had more energy than I knew what to do with. Like I was jittery. I had so much. I didn't need caffeine. I didn't need anything. My body just really responded to it really well for that particular discipline. And so I think the first time I was vegan, it was for 7 or 8 months. I ran it, and then I think we're hungover and bacon hit the grill, and I stopped being a vegan really really quick.
That bacon will do that to
It'll
a
do
guy.
that. It'll do it every time. But so it wasn't a philosophical or worldview thing. It was I tried it for a little while, and then like all of a sudden I had all these awesome benefits out of it. But I think part of it too is like this standard American diet. Like Natalie and I went to Iceland,
Yep.
and people will tell you this all the time. Like you can go to Europe as an American, eat whatever the hell you want, drink whatever the hell you want, and you'll still feel better than if you ate as good as you can out of a grocery store in the United States.
Why is that?
It has a lot to do with, uh, pumping up our crops and all manner of things. And like, even if you're eating really healthy, like read the ingredients,
Yeah.
right? Like there's still a ton of trash that's in a lot of things that are quote unquote
Like
healthy.
the natural all this stuff, and then you go look at the ingredients, and the list is like the ingredient list is that long. I think I've learned that like the fewer the ingredients, the better it is for you.
Yeah, so I think I really learned it in doing vegan stuff was the closer to the original product, right? Like there's a reason. I mean, I'm not vegan anymore. There's a reason I like red meat. Okay, because it is about as close to the freaking cow as I can get. That steak got cut from that carcass, right?
Yep.
It wasn't refined, altered, distilled, 10 ways from Sunday like white sugar would be, or like wheat typically is. Um, so I think what I found with being vegan is that I was as close to the root for everything, and my body really responded to that. And so that's like now when my fiance and I like are meal prepping, that kind of stuff, we try to stay as close to the original product as we can, right? So like wild rice instead of super enriched
Yeah.
starched white rice, and grass-fed beef, that kind of stuff. um, I think that's probably a huge part of why the inflammation was down. Is like I wasn't eating all the refined sugars. I wasn't eating all these things. Is I was as close to the original product as I could be.
Yeah, what was like a daily like meal for you when you were on your vegan plan, like as far as like breakfast, lunch, dinner, mixing a couple of snacks here and there, what were you eating? What was like a daily like walk us through like a daily your daily diet.
Yeah, I mean, like, I have a lot of problems with sweet potatoes now
Okay.
because I ate so many freaking
Like
sweet
you
potatoes.
just like you
It's
don't
like,
like them?
yeah, it's like when I
Okay.
was in college and I ate nothing but eggs and chicken breasts. I have issues with eggs and chicken breasts. So like tons of sweet potatoes, but like, I mean, it is amazing. So I love to cook. And so the culinary side of veganism is super cool because you can basically create anything,
Yep.
right? Like you can do, Panda Express orange chicken with cauliflower, right? Like I do cauliflower orange chicken was a huge staple for me. And like, um,
Because I remember following you, you would post some of the stuff you were eating on your Instagram. I like would see it and it's like it actually doesn't look terrible.
no, yeah, I mean, it's the flavors are awesome. Um, everybody likes eating fruit,
Yeah.
right? Like, it brought out a lot of creative ideals in me. I think my biggest issue is like tofu, like the soybean, right?
Yep.
Like, it has a lot of I don't know the science, and I'm sure we'll get lit up for this one too. So it has something to do with like estrogen, right? Like it's an estrogen binder or whatever it is, and so like soy is not like super good for guys, right?
You don't
Um,
want to be a soy boy.
you don't want to be a soy boy at all. But like so like yeah, when you're doing a ton of tofu and things, um, you gotta take that into effect and like not doing true cow's milk, that kind of stuff. Um, but yeah, I mean, and that's the other thing is like cow's milk has a ton of sugar in it,
Yeah.
like like everything we touch. And so um, I really enjoyed my first 8 months, and then we did like I got a buddy that went carnivore. He's a big hunter.
Yeah.
So
So I guess that's a good
yeah,
smooth trend. You're almost a natural podcaster there, Sean, about just
this
kind
is
of transitioning into my next set of questions is your carnivore versus vegan challenge.
yeah. So I kind of flaked. I feel really bad. Like Billy did a pretty good job. I got a buddy that's cop in Denver, huge hunter, big time hunter. And so he was the carnivore, I was the vegan, and I went back into veganism, but it was like a huge life
How
transition
long
for
did you
me.
guys do it for?
It was a 90-day challenge. And I think I probably hacked her out for about 45 days before I kind of fell off the wagon and we kind of stopped posting and our lives kind of went in opposite directions. And it just like, it really showed me that like the time that I was doing my 8 months of vegan was the perfect time for me to be a vegan for 8 months, right? Like I was a single dude, like everything was, I was working the perfect schedule to do it, to cook and prep and spend all that time. And there really is something to be said for the convenience of like my meal prep now. Like I spend all Sunday we meal prep and then it basically sustains us through the week. I don't have to really think about the recipes. Like it's the amount of planning that went into me being a vegan was massive because we live in, cattle country USA,
Yeah.
right? Like it's not like I got a Whole Foods down the road and I can like go get these exotic plants and fruits and all these things, right? So it was pretty limited here. Um, but for my buddy, I mean, he basically did reverse research. Like he has a bunch of health problems, did a bunch of reverse research as to the diet that would help him with those health problems. Um, and I mean, he saw massive improvements, but it was basically unsustainable to
Yeah.
like just eat nothing but meat
Because
all the time.
I feel like because like that's a big thing. Like I mean, like the emergence of a guy like Liver King, the carnivore diet, which Joe Rogan has done, and like and he's even gone on record when he's talked about doing it is like it's it isn't something that I think that you're able to really do. You can do full time just because you're missing out on so many like nutrients and like from like different like vegetables and fruits and
Yeah.
those type of those type of foods to where you have to like supplement like what was he using to kind of supplement Like what he
Oh,
wasn't
dude,
from carnivore to
like
like make
everything.
up for what he wasn't
Yeah, I
getting
mean,
from
like
those.
he was on, he was basically eating nothing but meat and livers and that kind of stuff and heart. And so he was getting a lot of things, but like, it's like, I mean, he was on 10 different supplements, right? Like you're not getting the proper amounts of vitamin C, like, there's all these things. And then on the other end of the spectrum, like I use a lot of vegan protein when
Yeah.
I was on my thing because I wasn't getting enough protein because I was getting a ton of, you're eating plants all the time. So I think I've found that through all the diets that I've done, all the, when I was personal training clients that I've worked with, I think that like if anybody's looking, paleo is kind of the catch-all great diet, right? Like you're as close to the root as you can get, you're as close to the animals you can get. It's not a lot of refined BS. You don't get caught up in the carb trap of like breads and that kind of stuff. So you're eating a lot of like very close to the earth grains, very close to the earth, um, plants, animals, that kind of stuff. So that's kind of like that was kind of our conclusion between the two of us is like, hey, you're eating a ton of animals. Hey, I'm eating a ton of plants. Like somewhere in the middle of this is pretty good, and that's kind of where paleo kind of falls.
Okay. Yeah.
So,
Well, and it's another thing too with like carnivore, and I mean, I did it for like a week,
mhm.
and it wasn't like a very serious thing. Like it just kind of like where it was like, oh, just eat just meat, but like I mean, your digest it cleans out your digestive system. Like it was the you were you destroyed there were some toilets destroyed for that. Was it similar that way when for like when you were on the vegan
Oh
diet?
man, it's like high fiber, right? Like you're
Yeah.
like you just you beg to shit
Yeah.
sometimes. Um, yeah, I mean, yeah, it's like changing any diet, right? Like you change up your normal and like you're flushing out all the bad shit out of your system. So, I mean, I think we'd all kind of benefit from like kind of simplifying and like not eating all the refined BS. But like,
Yeah.
I mean, our store shelves are just completely packed. Dang,
Yeah, that was
what are
loud.
you chiming out at over here? I
That
like
was
it.
just a text.
But yeah, man. So yeah, the vegan thing was really good at the point that I did the vegan thing. Now, I mean, Natalie and I try to stay fairly paleo, but
Okay.
I mean, like we can't get away from like I think my problem is like people eat all this refined bullshit, right? And don't get enough of the right stuff. We eat a shit pile of the right stuff so that when we're like, I call her, I'm like, hey, do you need anything from the store? And she's like, man, I'm craving chocolate. And like if we get a pan of brownies and we eat a pan of brownies, it's not a big deal in our
Yep.
general health because we eat pretty good all the time,
Yeah.
right? And so versus like the typical American diet is like you eat like trash all the time, and then you might occasionally get something good in your system. So um, yeah, I mean, like I said, we try to stay paleo most of the time for our general diet, but like we don't deprive ourselves of anything.
Okay. Yeah. Well, and kind of the same thing that we talked about with working out and exercise. It's the balance and consistency. That's always kind of the one thing that everything circles back to. It's you know one extreme to the other extreme. If you're finding some way to be in that middle and consistency. So even like if you do miss a day or you have a cheat meal, it's not the end of the world where you you're like all the way you feel like you're starting back from square one.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. And I think that rewarding yourself is a big deal. Like, hey, if you're the type of person that functions on reward, right? Like if you're a goal setter that functions on reward and you have problems with consistency, you have problems with, the reliability of getting to the gym or doing whatever it is. I'm a huge fan. I used to tell clients this all the time. I'm like, reward yourself. Like work hard all week for that cheat meal,
yeah.
whatever it is. Work hard all week for, gorging yourself on cookies all weekend. Like if I can get you to do 5 days of doing the right thing, you F off for 2 days, but you're consistent with your workouts or with your diet or whatever it is, like feel free to reward
Yeah.
yourself. Like people think that working out is all about, hammering it hard and then depriving yourselves of things. Like, no, I work hard so that I can eat whatever the shit I want
Yeah.
sometimes, and I don't feel guilty
Yeah.
about it, right?
Yeah. I've heard people say I work out so I can eat more, which
Yeah, yeah,
it's
100%.
that's a fair point. And it's like I definitely had that phase of my life where it was like, yeah, I'm working out so I can so I have an excuse to eat more. Um, but when you were is that when you were living down in your van by the river?
No, no, I was not.
It wasn't, and
It's
it wasn't a van down by the river, but it's an iconic line, an iconic scene from Saturday Night Live.
it is.
It felt fitting to use, so I think we'll refer to it. But it was actually an
It's
Airstream.
actually like a 38-foot,
You still have it?
luxury. Yeah, dude, it's sitting in front of the house right now.
Okay.
Yeah, so we actually just pulled it down to the house, and we're gonna kind of revamp, and we're on the new life journey thing. Like, it was never built for two of us; it was
Yeah.
built for Big Bachelor Sean and his dog. So, um, yeah, I think it's either gonna come with us on this new life journey and kind of be a like mother-in-law suite at wherever we end up, but or we're going to get rid of it. So
Okay.
yeah, it's been a labor of love, but yeah, for those listening, I built a 38 foot. It's called Spartan. It's kind of like a giant Airstream, big aluminum trailer, and lived in it for a while. But yeah, no, I wasn't a vegan while I was
No.
living in the trailer. No, I
That would have been full hippie
full
Sean.
hippie
You could have gotten like a wig or some hair plugs or
you never.
extensions.
What's the line? You never go full hippie.
Yeah. Is that what that is?
I think it's a little less politically correct.
And then you have some cannabis plants you're growing too.
Yeah, exactly.
But how did you come up with the idea that you wanted to live in an Airstream?
Man, I'm like such a product of like TV and influence. You watch all the tiny house shows, and I was like, man, it's just me and the dog. Like, why do I kind of looked around, and I was like, why do I have all this shit? Right? Like, why do I have all these things, all this stuff? Why do I have two full garages? Why do I have a shop? Like, all these things. And so it was more about kind of paring down and like, you pare down, like, you build a tiny house, right? You pare down like things, right? Like, so you look at everything you have and you're like, well, what do I actually need? Right? And so you realize there's all this like consumerism, all this frivolous shit that you don't need, that you bought because it gave you comfort at that time and you used it once or whatever, and you never used it again. And you've had it for 10 years and you're carrying it around and it doesn't make any sense. So yeah, no, I wanted a change, and I wanted a cool kind of challenge to myself. And, from I like woodworking and that kind of stuff. So an interesting woodworking challenge and an interesting life challenge to kind of like put my life back together, to like, we don't need all the stuff that we typically have, and to kind of realize what I needed.
Yeah. And then so like when you bought that, how much was it something that needed a lot of work, or was it something that, it was ready, you were ready to move in and you had to
Well,
livable?
God forbid the guy that sold me this thing stumbles across this freaking podcast. It was in pretty good shape. It was in pretty good shape. I actually was in Whidbey Island, Seattle. And you could have probably hooked it up in a climate, better than ours, and lived in it. But for where we live, it wasn't going to work. Like, it needed more insulation, needed a little better heat, better everything. So I literally took a vintage Spartan that was in pretty good shape and gutted the entire thing and built it back from scratch. I should have, hindsight being 2020, I should have found one that was beat to shit on the inside.
Right.
And the guy had taken care of it pretty good. But yeah, I mean, it just wasn't for what I wanted. I knew I wanted that style. I fell in love with this one. The body was awesome. The rivets were awesome. It was in such good shape that I knew I had really good bones. And so it was okay to spend a little bit more to gut it to keep good bones than to go into something that was kind of,
Yeah. What did you all have in there as far as, you talked about getting rid of a lot of the stuff, excess things you had. What was kind of like your setup that you had? I'm guessing you had like a TV at a bathroom.
Yeah, I mean, like I didn't skimp on anything, right? Like you got what 900 square feet here. I mean, that
Yep.
thing's like 300 square feet, maybe 380. Um, I mean, I had everything. I have a dishwasher. I mean,
Oh,
it has internal tanks. I didn't I man, nobody wants to clean poo, so I got an incinerating toilet, which is super fascinating.
and what is that?
It literally burns poo.
Oh, wow.
It literally is like a sealed system, burns it,
So
takes all
smelly.
well, like yeah, like takes well, like I mean, it vents it out the top, so you never like, but it takes like all the material, organic material, it takes all the water, all the everything out about it, burns it down to a very sterile ash that you can literally like put in your garden. Like it's like it is sterile. It's sterile ashes comes out of your fireplace. I got a big pellet burner in there for heat. I've got two big AC units. Um, yeah, I mean, it has all the trappings of a luxury apartment just on a small scale, and you just don't have a ton of storage, right? Like, so you
It's like living in a 300 square foot apartment in New York City that'll cost you like $5,000 a month.
exactly,
But probably
exactly,
not as much.
yeah, yeah, you spent way less doing
Maybe
this.
maybe if anybody is listening and Sean decides to sell it and they want to move to New York, maybe he'll sell it to you and you can whoever it is can find a lot in New York and they can live there
Parking on
for
the street.
cheap.
They let everyone live on the street in New York and probably park it on the street out there. But yeah, I mean, it was like, so as far as paring down, it's like you get rid of like, you have six of the same style of jackets, right? Like you got six puff jackets. Like you only really need one. Like,
Yep.
you know, that kind of stuff. You know, the closet isn't huge. You know, your storage isn't huge, but like, dude, I have a walk-in shower. And it was kind of fun. It was fun for me from an engineering standpoint and like my background and my woodworking background to like completely re-engineer things all the time. Like I build something, I'd be like, ah, this doesn't work. So you take it all apart and you rebuild it because you only have, it's not like a house where you have like a room that you don't use, right?
Yeah.
Like every inch of that place has some sort of storage or some sort of purpose to it, which was a lot of fun.
Yeah. And then so like how did you as far as like laundry and like you had a did you have like a hot plate or did you have like a full oven?
It has a full oven in it, a
Okay.
full oven gas. So
Oh,
it's a propane stove. Um, so I never, when I was living in it, I never did laundry in it, but it is set up for a all-in-one washer dryer.
okay.
So like, but the problem is they suck. There's actually or GE or Samsung or somebody just came out with a good one that like actually kind of like dries your clothes. Like that was always a big gripe about all-in-ones is it washes really well, but it dries like shit.
Yeah.
Um, like it's fully set up. Like I said, man, like I got a dishwasher. There's room for laundry in it. It's got a gas stove. It's got a full size fridge in it. Like it was great. Like it was the perfect. I've got a drop sink that's bigger than the sink in my house now. You know, it's I got a custom design every inch of that thing to what I wanted.
Okay.
It was fun.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah. Do you have plans to did you take it camping anywhere or no, it's just been
never,
sitting in front of your house then
never.
since you moved into where you're at now?
Yeah, no, it's been sitting in the yard at my office for a while. So I had it at a buddy's land when I was living in it. Then it moved to my yard for a while, and I haven't touched it for about a year. So we just pulled it back down to my house so that we can kind of finish,
Okay.
right? Like so, I mean, I was living in it and working on it, and so it needs some revamp and needs some stuff, and it's basically set up completely to be ready for to take solar. Like I built it so eventually I could put solar on it, and I thought it was gonna be like this huge long term gig, and everybody can kind of relate to life changes,
Yeah.
right? Like all of a sudden I met my fiance,
Yep.
and all of a sudden there's two of us and two dogs and all of our shit, and you can't. It was not. It was never designed to do two of us. It was designed for me to be like bachelor pad, right? Like solo
Yep.
guy on the road doing whatever. But yeah, it's hard because we'll revamp it now, and it's like, do we sell it? Do we keep it? Um, I think it's gonna be hard for me to sell it.
Yeah.
I put
Yeah.
so
No
many
kidding.
freaking hours into that thing. So yeah,
Yeah. Well, I guess are you able to discuss your new life adventure yet? Or
Yeah, so yeah,
okay,
everything's official now.
okay.
So
So all right, well, tell us Sean Hope's next move here.
Sean Hill's next, but we're moving
You're
to
moving to live in a van down by the river.
one can only hope. That's like my life dream. No, I mean, man, I'm becoming an adult. So like, um, I had a buddy whose dad was a Delta pilot, and his life motto was, "You can be a pilot or you can grow up. You can't do both." And he was a hell of a fun guy. And that was like always my life motto. I was like, like I'm just never gonna grow up. Like I'm just gonna be like floating through life, hanging out, making money, doing whatever. So like now I'm like gotta go do adult shit. So we're moving to Texas. So like I mean we're looking at houses, like it's a whole big deal. I gotta get married in a year. So yeah, so we're I'm getting out of oil and gas, moving into full ticket construction side of things, project management, that kind of stuff. And I'm really excited about it. Oil and gas has been super up and down. I've lived through 2 oil crashes, COVID. I mean, everything about oil and gas it's been tough and it's been a hard slog. And this is, it's the right move for us. Texas is good for my fiance. She is a teacher and they make a ton of money in Texas, which is great,
Yep.
as they should.
Yep. Absolutely. One of
Yeah,
the most underpaid profession. My
it's
my
so
mom's a
bad.
teacher,
Yeah,
and especially like even and yeah, we're going. I didn't want it to turn into where we're tracing everything back to COVID, but you know, it's made things way more difficult on teachers and kids being out of school, and I think it's somewhat
discipline, the whole
there's
nine
some
yards.
it's
Yeah,
somewhat getting back to prior, but it's still one of those things where it's kids are creatures of habit and routine, as like, and they're the ones that need it the most.
and that structure. Yeah.
Yeah, and they don't have it, and they're still having those issues, and it's something that that it's been a problem forever. The teachers absolutely need to be paid more, and
Oh, 100%.
frankly, and even with if they were to get a substantial raise, frankly, it's not enough.
No, dude. Like, I mean, I remember you being a student.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to teach me.
No.
I grew up. My mom was a teacher, right?
Yeah.
Like, man, the story she came home with. Both of my fiance's parents are educators. Natalie's an educator. Yeah, I mean, it'll be good to be in a market where she can kind of flourish, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a hard decision. It's bittersweet because like, we live in small town USA and everybody. Like
Yeah.
you can get anything, like your truck breaks down. There's 67 and a half people that are going to come out.
And there'll be nice
help
people
you
even
out.
too that'll just
Yeah,
pop up and help you out.
exactly.
Just doing a good
People
thing.
you've never met before will come give you the shirt off their back. So it's bittersweet for us to leave the community that we built here, but when we look at the long-term benefits of moving and me moving my career and what that entails and our opportunities with this company, it's kind of a big deal. So we're lucky we get kind of that 3 to 6 month time frame that we just suffered through the worst winter North Dakota's seen in a while, and so we get to enjoy our summer and spend our time with everybody.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely. Well, it's exciting. I'm going to be sad to see you go, but happy for you and Natalie, for you guys to move down, have some warmer winters. Enter into that.
You're more excited that you get to come down during the warm winter.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly, 100%.
Exactly. But one more question, we'll get you out of here now.
Right,
so we
buddy.
talked about your health, fitness. This is about over a 2-hour episode here,
Hey,
and we probably could go on even longer for another hour or two. It's it's partially because we don't see each other as much anymore, and this has been a tremendous conversation for the last 2 hours or so.
Yeah.
But all great things do have to come to an end. So I guess that's just another reason you're gonna have to come back on again.
That's just it.
And so we talked about health, fitness. You guys are meal prep Friday, Saturday, or on Sunday to get you guys through the week. Cold plunges, all that healthier lifestyle than me and most of the people listening. Which maybe this has gotten me ready to where I want to get back. I'm going to get back into it and start working out.
Sneak over and get in the ice bath.
We'll see.
Okay.
But before you leave, I will go do an ice bath.
Okay.
And I'll clip this part, and then I will make sure that I have to before you leave, so that way I can post it and share, like, how bad I'm going to suffer through those 4 minutes.
Yeah.
But talked about having some cheat meals. Now, and you can have anything you want. Now, what is a Sean Hope cheat meal? Your ideal cheat meal now?
Man, my ideal.
And this cannot be like the Rock cheat meals either, where it's, if you've ever seen his cheat meals where it's like French toast, but it's like gluten free, or the syrup, or like his it's French toast. It's like got like strawberries on it or something like that.
My cheat meal.
No, like this is like full, like you're gonna feel absolutely gross, disgusting. Like you just hit a giant buffet.
Dude, okay, so can I put 2 in the world?
Yeah,
because we do charcuterie boards all the fucking time. Like I'm a huge
wine. Does that come from your wine days?
Yes, I'm a disgusting cheese fanatic. Like I love all different types of cheese and like weird Italian meats and shit. So we do that quite a bit as a cheat meal. But like my big cheat meals are like big pasta dishes, like heavy cream sauces.
Is this from like scratch, or is it store bought, or what?
I mean, I don't know. I mean, I have done pasta from scratch in the past, but like I don't do pasta from scratch anymore. So like, but like, yeah, like all my sauces are from scratch.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, I'm not saying doing like the noodles and stuff, because that's a lot of work.
Dude, my dad'll hand roll pasta.
And you're not Italian?
No.
You sure?
Well, I mean,
I
think my old man's Italian.
Your last name ends in a vowel, so you can't rule it out.
Italian. Yeah, no, I mean, my ancestry is kind of Northern Europe, but yeah, I think my dad grew up kind of North Denver Italian.
Okay.
So, but like, yeah, dude, like heavy pasta dishes, big cream sauces, sun-dried tomatoes, that kind of stuff. There's a little freshness in there, but like that big, heavy meal, fresh parm over the top, that kind of stuff. Like that's a big, good cheat meal for me.
Okay, yeah, for sure. You can never go wrong with pasta, and that's definitely a good choice there. For me, I would have to say I'd probably like a double bacon cheeseburger with all the fixings, fries, put a little maybe a little cheese buffalo sauce on it. Too, some bacon bits sprinkled over it.
We should go down to Blue. You and me. Let's go down to Blue and have some burgers.
Let's
go do a cheat meal day.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm at the point where like pretty much anything I eat it would be considered a cheat meal, Sean. But or chicken wings. But like, even for the sake of this conversation, we'll say I'm eating really healthy. I'm nice and lean. I've been doing it for a solid 3 months.
Yeah.
I'm hammering that. I'm gonna get some I'm a huge queso guy. Like Buffalo Wild Wings, their chili cheese hatch queso with chips is incredible.
Dude, Colorado hatch chili's, bud.
Yep,
it'll get you every time.
And it like I could eat like probably 15 wings, double cheeseburger.
Who's
full on.
You know who's the best wings in town? Freaking Fat Fish.
Really?
Yes, God, it's so good.
Okay.
We go in there for like 5 pounds of wing, drink beer on the patio. Yeah. There's definitely alcohol involved in my cheat meal. Everybody.
Yeah. Well, of course you have to. It's got to be
you got to get after it.
So, okay. Well, Sean, this has been a lot of fun. Like I said, we're going to be doing this again at some point. Yep. But where can people find your stuff? Where can they follow you? I know you got an Instagram.
Yeah, Sean Michael Hope. Actually, I think I'm Sean Michael Hop 1 on Instagram.
Okay.
Yeah, just look me up. Have me on Facebook, Sean Michael Hope. Yeah, I'm out there. Our other one, it's not super active right now, but we're kind of getting into it. Our Black Diesel Overland is a good one for like kind of our adventures.
That's your pickup, right?
Yeah, that's my pickup. As we kind of move, Black Diesel Overland will kind of pick up. So
okay. Yeah. All righty. Well, then, we didn't even get to discuss that, so you have to come back.
We got to come back. We can do this like once a week.
Okay. Well, yeah, that puts a bow on this conversation Monday. We will talk to you guys next time.